Welcome, traveller of the mind. Before we begin our long drifting journey through the eons, take a moment to settle into the sanctuary you've created for yourself. Let the outside world fade into a soft, indistinct hum, like the sound of a distant ocean rolling against a shore of velvet sand. Here, in this space, there are no demands, no ticking clocks, and no urgency. There is only the present moment, a vast and quiet cavern of safety where you are free to simply exist. Feel the weight of your body sinking deeper into the mattress, as if gravity is gently embracing you, pulling you down into a state of profound restoration. Close your eyes and imagine a heavy, warm blanket of twilight wrapping around your shoulders. It is a darkness not of fear, but of comfort. The kind of darkness that existed before the stars were born, a potential-filled void that promises rest. Notice the rhythm of your own breathing. Inhale slowly, drawing in the cool silver air of the night, and exhale the tension of the day, watching it dissolve like mist in the morning sun. With every breath, you're becoming heavier, looser, and more connected to the ancient rhythms that govern the universe. We're about to embark on a voyage through time, drifting backward through the river of history to witness the slow, majestic unfolding of life itself. It is a story written not in ink but in stardust and water, in the slow shifting of continents and the quiet resilience of cells. As you listen to my voice, let the concepts wash over you like gentle waves. You do not need to memorize, analyze, or understand. You only need to observe, floating weightlessly above the timeline of existence, watching the great tapestry of evolution weave itself together in the slow motion of a dream. Let your mind become as vast as the sky, open and receptive as we prepare to return to the very beginning, to the seeds of everything that ever was and ever will be. In the deepest reaches of your imagination, picture the silence of the primordial void, a canvas of infinite black where time has not yet begun to tick. Before there was life, before there was a planet to hold it, there was only the dust of ancient exploded stars drifting through the cosmos. It is a profound and comforting truth that every atom in your body, the calcium in your bones and the iron in your blood, was once forged in the fiery heart of a dying star. Imagine these vast clouds of cosmic glitter, swirling in the silence of space, shimmering with iridescent colours, deep purples, burning oranges and cool blues. Over millions of years, gravity, like a patient sculptor, began to pull these tiny motes of dust together. There is no rush here, only the slow, graceful dance of matter finding matter. Visualize the particles coalescing, drawn together by an invisible embrace, spinning faster and faster until they ignite. This is the cosmic heritage you carry within you. You are, in the most literal sense, a child of the universe, crafted from the debris of celestial giants. Feel a sense of belonging expand within your chest, knowing that you're not separate from the stars above, but made of the very same material. As these clouds of stardust cooled and condensed, they formed the rocky sphere that would become our home. It was a chaotic, beautiful birth, a gathering of elements that would eventually learn to breathe, to think, and to dream. From this swirling cosmic dance, our focus gently narrows, descending through the atmosphere of a young, volatile Earth to settle upon the surface of a world dominated by water. Visualize a planet without green, without trees, simply a vast, rolling global ocean under a heavy grey sky. The waters are warm, heated by the restless magma beneath the crust, creating a cauldron of potential. This is the primordial soup, a rich, chemical broth where the ingredients of life are mixing in the currents. Picture the steam rising from the surface, curling into the thick, nitrogen-heavy air, while storms of biblical proportions rage overhead, casting jagged bolts of lightning into the waves. It is here, in this warm, salty embrace, that the magic of chemistry begins to transcend into biology. The water is thick with minerals, a dark, nutrient-dense tea steeping over millions of years. Imagine yourself floating in this ancient ocean, feeling the warmth of the thermal vents rising from the deep, protecting you, cradling the delicate reactions occurring on the microscopic scale. There is no life yet as we know it, just complex molecules learning to replicate, learning to fold, learning to persist. It is a time of waiting, a long, pregnant pause in the history of the world where the ocean itself is a womb, nurturing the possibility of something new. The rhythm of the waves against the rocky, barren islands is the heartbeat of a planet preparing to wake up. And then, in the quiet dark of a hydrothermal vent deep beneath the crushing weight of the sea, a spark ignites, not of fire, but of life. We drift toward the concept of the last universal common ancestor, lovingly known as Luca. Picture a single, microscopic entity, a tiny sphere of organization amidst the chaos. It is the great-grandmother of us all, the singular point from which the entire tree of life will eventually branch. It is a humble beginning, a microscopic bubble protected by a thin membrane, holding within it the first genetic code, the first instructions for existence. Visualize this tiny speck glowing with a faint inner biological light in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. It feeds on the heat and the chemicals spewing from the Earth's interior, a testament to resilience. From this one survivor, every tree, every eagle, every whale, and every human being will eventually descend. Feel the profound connection stretching back across billions of years, a silver thread tying your heartbeat to that first, fragile pulse of life in the deep. It is a solitary existence, yet it is full of promise. Luca divides and divides again, a slow, exponential expansion of life, claiming its place in the world, turning the lifeless mineral water into a living, breathing ecosystem. As the eons drift by like clouds across a slow-motion sky, these descendants of the deep begin to rise and spread, filling the oceans with the first true dynasty of Earth, the prokaryotes. Imagine them as tiny, drifting capsules, incredibly simple, lacking a central nucleus, yet possessing an unmatched durability. They are the nomads of the ancient seas, floating effortlessly on the currents, exploring every corner of the globe. They are not burdened by complexity. They are streamlined for survival, capable of enduring heat, cold, and salt. Visualize the ocean teeming with them, a microscopic galaxy of life invisible to the naked eye. They are the masters of adaptation, learning to eat different chemicals, learning to live in colonies, learning to share genetic secrets with one another. There is a sense of peaceful wandering here, a lack of predator or prey, just an endless drifting in the nutrient-rich waters. They coat the rocks in slippery films, painting the underwater landscape in shades of rust and ochre. For billions of years, they are the only inhabitants, the silent custodians of the planet, preparing the world for the complexity that is yet to come. They teach us the value of simplicity, of finding a niche and thriving within it, of the quiet strength found in being small but numerous. From this world of simple wanderers, a miraculous transformation occurs, changing the colour of the planet forever. Certain bacteria, the cyanobacteria, discover a new kind of alchemy. They learn to drink the sunlight. Picture vast mats of blue-green algae forming in the shallow sunlit lagoons, bobbing gently on the surface. They turn their faces to the sun and perform the first photosynthesis, taking in the harsh solar radiation and water to create energy, releasing a waste product that will change everything: oxygen. Visualize tiny bubbles of oxygen rising from these green mats, ascending through the water column like sparkling diamonds, breaking the surface to mix with the atmosphere. For the first time, the sky begins to change. The heavy orange haze of the ancient Earth slowly clears, replaced by the deep, brilliant blue we know today. It is the first deep breath of the planet. This great oxygenation is a slow, silent revolution, a gift from the smallest beings to the future of all complex life. Imagine the air becoming crisp and energized, a fuel waiting for more active, larger creatures to use. The ocean turns from grey to a stunning azure, and the world feels lighter, brighter, and more awake. It is a testament to how even the smallest actions, repeated over time, can alter the very atmosphere of a world. In this oxygen-rich world, a new intimacy begins to form between the wandering cells, leading to one of the most important mergers in history. We drift toward the concept of endosymbiosis, the idea of life living within life. Imagine a large predatory cell moving through the water, engulfing a smaller bacterium. But instead of digesting it, a truce is called. The smaller cell remains alive inside the larger one, protected and safe. In return, the smaller cell provides energy to its host. It is the first great partnership, a biological embrace that becomes permanent. Visualize this internal cooperation, the smaller cell becoming the mitochondria, the powerhouse that drives nearly every complex living thing today. It is a beautiful lesson in unity, that we are not singular entities but colonies of ancient cooperation. Every time you move a muscle, every time you think a thought, you're using the energy provided by these ancient guests living within your cells. Picture a glowing light within the center of a translucent cell, a hearth fire that warms the house. This merger allowed life to become bigger, more energetic, and more complex. It was the moment when life decided that working together was far more powerful than struggling alone. With this new internal energy source, life begins to dream of grander structures. We move from the age of the solitary cell to the dawn of multicellularity. Imagine the cells, which had spent billions of years drifting alone, beginning to cluster together. They hold hands, chemically speaking, forming sheets, spheres, and hollow tubes. They begin to specialize. Some cells agree to handle digestion, others to sense the light, and others to protect the colony. It is the birth of the first true bodies. Visualize the soft, frond-like creatures of the Ediacaran period, resting on the sandy ocean floor. They are peaceful, immobile, resembling quilted pillows or fern fronds made of jelly, swaying gently in the ancient currents. There are no teeth, no claws, no eyes, only a soft, absorbing existence. They absorb nutrients directly through their skin, living in a garden of peace before the invention of predation. Feel the softness of this era, the gentle cooperation of cells building tissues, creating forms that are visible to the naked eye for the first time. It is a time of experimentation, of life trying out new shapes to see what fits, a slow, artistic sculpting of biological clay. The peace of the garden eventually gives way to a sudden, riotous burst of creativity known as the Cambrian explosion. It is as if nature suddenly unlocked a treasure chest of blueprints. Within a relatively short span of time, the oceans are filled with a dazzling array of hard shells, spines, legs, and armor. Imagine the ocean floor becoming a bustling metropolis of strange and wonderful creatures. Trilobites scuttle across the sand, their segmented bodies protected by calcite shields, while the first swimming predators glide through the water column. Visualize the colors and textures, the iridescent glint of shells, the waving of feathery antennae, the complex interactions of a fully formed ecosystem. Life is no longer just sitting and waiting. It is moving, hunting, burrowing, and defending. It is a celebration of diversity, a firework display of evolutionary potential. This era laid the foundation for almost every major animal group that exists today. It serves as a reminder of the boundless creativity of nature, of the ability to produce endless variations on a theme, filling every crack and crevice of the ocean with movement and vitality. Amidst this explosion of life, a profound new sense emerges, the ability to see. Initially, life could only sense light and dark, a vague awareness of the sun's position, but slowly distinct organs begin to form. Imagine the first primitive eye spots evolving into complex lenses, capable of resolving images. For the first time, a creature can look out and witness the world it inhabits. Visualize the blur of the underwater world sharpening into focus. Shapes, colors, and movements become clear. The predator can see its prey. The prey can see the shadow of danger. It is the birth of perspective. To see the light filtering down through the water, to see the texture of the coral in the sand, is a miracle of biological engineering. This development sparked an arms race of evolution, but it also brought beauty into the world. The universe, through the eyes of these ancient creatures, began to observe itself. Feel the wonder of that first clear image, the sudden expansion of the mind as visual information floods in, painting a picture of reality that is rich, detailed, and vibrant. As the oceans teem with sight and sound, the edges of the water begin to look inviting. We drift finally to the water's edge, where the brave pioneers prepare to make the greatest journey of all, the move to land. The continents are no longer barren rock. They are beginning to green with mosses and primitive ferns. Imagine a creature, part fish and part something else, lurking in the shallow, muddy waters of a river delta. It has fins, but within them are stout bones, the precursors to wrists and fingers. Visualize this creature, the Tiktaalik, pushing itself up from the mud, its head breaking the surface to breathe the air. It drags itself onto a sandbank, feeling the heavy pull of gravity in a way it never has before. The sun is hotter here, the air is dry, but the resources are plentiful. It is a struggle, a clumsy, waddling effort, but it is the first step toward the forests, the mountains, and the skies. Feel the determination in that movement, the willingness to leave the comfort of the known ocean for the challenging promise of the dry land. It is the beginning of a lineage that will eventually lead to the dinosaurs, to the mammals, and finally to you, lying in your bed, dreaming of the ancient past. The journey from the water to the land is the ultimate symbol of growth, of stepping out of the depths and into the light. And as those first brave pioneers drag their heavy bodies onto the sand, leaving the comfort of the water behind, they find themselves in a world that is already quietly preparing for their arrival. We drift now into the deep emerald silence of the first true forests. Before the animals could conquer the land, the plants had to tame the stone. Visualize the slow, creeping carpet of green spreading across the barren continents. It begins with the humblest of life forms, mosses and liverworts, clinging to the bare rock, patiently breaking it down over millennia, turning hard stone into soft, dark soil. Imagine standing in one of these primeval forests, long before the first flower ever bloomed. The air here is thick with humidity and smells of wet earth and crushing greenery. There are no broad leaves rustling in the wind, only the architectural shapes of giant ferns and horsetails, towering like green obelisks toward the grey sky. Some of these ancient fungi and fern trees rise dozens of feet into the air, creating a canopy that filters the sunlight into a dim, mysterious twilight. It is a silent world, lacking the song of birds or the buzz of bees, populated only by the whisper of spores drifting on the breeze. Feel the dampness of the moss under your mental feet, a soft, sponge-like carpet that invites you to rest. This green invasion was the planet's way of terraforming itself, building the very atmosphere and ground that would support all future giants. As the forests thicken and the eons pass, the chemistry of the air itself begins to shift, leading us into a period of dizzying vitality known as the Carboniferous. The trees and ferns, growing with reckless abundance, pump unprecedented amounts of oxygen into the atmosphere. Picture the air becoming rich, heavy, and hyper-oxygenated, a potent fuel that allows life to expand beyond its previous limits. In this dense, swampy world, the insects begin to grow to mythical proportions. Visualize a dragonfly with the wingspan of an eagle, its iridescent wings shimmering like stained glass as it patrols the slow-moving rivers. Hear the deep, resonant thrum of its flight, a sound like a low-frequency fan cutting through the humid air. Centipedes the size of alligators slither through the rotting undergrowth, masters of the forest floor. It is a world of giants, powered by the sweet, thick air. When these massive trees fall into the swampy water, they do not rot completely. Instead, they sink, layer upon layer, trapping the sun's energy deep within the mud. This is the black gold we know as coal today, ancient sunlight captured in the bodies of prehistoric trees, waiting millions of years to be released. Feel the stillness of the swamp, the heavy heat, and the slow accumulation of time in the dark waters, a reservoir of energy being stored for the distant future. But for life to truly conquer the dry interior of the continents, it had to solve the problem of water. It had to break the chain that bound every creature to return to the pond to breed. Drift now to the invention of the amniotic egg, a miracle of biological engineering that changed the course of history. Visualize a small lizard-like creature venturing far from the riverbank into the dry, sun-baked dunes. It lays a clutch of eggs, but these are different. They are encased in a tough, leathery shell. Think of this egg as a private, portable ocean. Inside the shell, the embryo floats in its own fluid, safe from the drying sun, provided with all the nutrients it needs to grow. It is a spacesuit for the unborn, allowing them to survive in the harsh vacuum of the dry land. Because of this shell, life is no longer tethered to the water's edge. Creatures can now walk into the deep deserts, climb the high mountains, and claim the heart of the continents. Picture the baby reptile breaking through the leathery skin of the egg, taking its first breath of dry air, a fully formed miniature of its parents. This moment represents ultimate liberation, the cutting of the umbilical cord to the ocean, allowing the vertebrates to wander wherever their legs could carry them. Yet, the story of evolution is not always one of expansion. It is also a story of resilience in the face of apocalypse. The scene darkens as we drift toward the end of the Permian period, the era of the Great Dying. The Earth, in a spasm of volcanic fury, begins to fever. Vast floods of lava, the Siberian traps, erupt for thousands of years, pouring unimaginable quantities of greenhouse gases into the sky. The air turns hot and sour. The oceans stagnate and lose their oxygen. Visualize a world falling silent. The lush forests wither into grey ash, and the bustling reefs turn into underwater graveyards. It is a time of profound stillness, a bottleneck where the flame of life flickers in the wind, threatening to go out entirely. 90% of all species vanish into the fossil record. But in this desolate landscape, visualize a survivor, the Lystrosaurus, a sturdy, pig-sized burrower with a beak like a turtle. It digs deep into the cool earth, waiting out the heat, scavenging on tough roots. It is not the strongest or the most beautiful, but it is adaptable. Feel the quiet tenacity of this creature, huddling in its burrow while the world burns above. It is a reminder that survival often belongs not to the mighty, but to the endurers, those who can weather the storm and wait for the dawn. From the ashes of this destruction, the world slowly heals, and a new dynasty begins to rise, one that will capture the imagination of every human child millions of years later. We enter the Triassic, the dawn of the dinosaurs, but do not picture them as giants just yet. Visualize them as they started, small, agile, bipedal runners, no bigger than a dog. They are the underdogs of this recovery period, darting between the legs of larger, slower reptiles. Picture these early dinosaurs moving with a new kind of energy. Their legs are positioned directly under their bodies, not splayed to the sides like lizards, giving them efficiency and speed. They are warm, active, and alert, their eyes scanning the horizon. The world is drying out, becoming a landscape of scrub and desert, and these agile runners are perfectly built for it. Feel the lightness of their steps, the quick twitch of their muscles. They represent a new design, a shift toward active metabolism, ready to seize the opportunities of an empty world. They are the seeds of greatness, the humble ancestors of the titans that are destined to shake the earth. As the wheel of time turns to the Jurassic, the climate softens, The rains return, and the forests grow tall once more, and with the trees, the dinosaurs grow to match them. We drift now into the presence of the true giants, the sauropods. Close your eyes and try to construct the scale of a creature like Diplodocus or Brachiosaurus. They are living mountains, walking cathedrals of flesh and bone. Visualize a herd of them moving slowly across a fern-covered plain. Their long necks sweep gracefully through the air, reaching the tender leaves at the very tops of the Araucaria trees. Their movements are slow and deliberate. When you are this large, you do not rush. You simply exist, a massive engine of biology processing tons of greenery. Feel the ground tremble rhythmically beneath your feet with each heavy step. Thud, thud, thud. It is a vibration that can be felt for miles. Despite their size, there is a gentleness to them. They are peaceful grazers, their small heads stripping leaves with efficient calm. To stand in their shadow is to feel a sense of awe at the limits of biology, realizing that nature once built creatures that rivaled the size of whales, walking upon the solid ground. While the giants claim the earth, other eyes look upward, dreaming of the void above. The desire to fly is an ancient one, and in the shadow of the trees, a transformation is taking place. Small feathered dinosaurs are beginning to experiment with gravity. Drift to the concept of the first birds, the Archaeopteryx. Imagine a creature that is a bridge between two worlds. It has the teeth and long tail of a reptile, but its arms are draped in beautiful, complex feathers. Visualize this creature perched high on a branch, looking down at the forest floor. It spreads its wings, feeling the lift of the wind, and leaps. It is not a perfect flyer yet, perhaps more of a clumsy glider, but the sensation is revolutionary. The air, once empty, becomes a playground. Feel the rush of the wind through the feathers, the sudden weightlessness, the shift from a two-dimensional life on the ground to a three-dimensional life in the sky. The evolution of the feather, initially for warmth or display, is repurposed for flight, turning the sky into a new frontier. It is the ultimate freedom, the ability to escape the bonds of earth and soar. As the skies fill with wings, the ground below undergoes a silent explosion of colour. For millions of years, the world was a tapestry of green and brown. There were no flowers, no fruits, no sweet scents. But now, in the Cretaceous, the angiosperms arrive, the flowering plants. Imagine the first bloom unfolding its petals in a monochrome forest. It is a shock of purple, or perhaps a blaze of yellow, a beacon calling out to the insect world. Visualize the air filling with new perfumes, sweet and heavy, designed to seduce. The plants enter into a beautiful contract with the insects. I will give you nectar if you carry my pollen. This coevolution changes the look of the planet. Fruits appear, wrapping seeds in sugary flesh to tempt animals to eat and disperse them. The world becomes a garden. Hear the low buzz of bees, a sound that did not exist before as they dance from flower to flower. The visual landscape of Earth is painted with a new palette, soft pinks and deep reds, a celebration of life's desire to reproduce and spread. It is a sensory revolution, adding fragrance and taste to the experience of existence. But all eras, no matter how majestic, eventually face their twilight. We drift now to a single day that changed the world forever. The arrival of the Chicxulub asteroid. It is not a story of malice, but of cosmic chance. High above the atmosphere, a rock the size of a mountain is hurtling through the dark. When it strikes the Yucatan Peninsula, it releases the energy of billions of atomic bombs. Visualize the flash of light, brighter than the sun, followed by the shockwave. But focusing on the destruction brings fear. Instead, focus on the transition. The sky darkens with ash and dust, blotting out the sun for months, perhaps years. The great photosynthesis stops. The winter comes. The mighty dinosaurs who needed vast amounts of food and warmth quietly fade into history. They fall asleep in the cold and do not wake up. It is a somber closing of a curtain, a necessary clearing of the stage. The reign of the giants ends, not with a roar, but with the silence of falling snow in a darkened world. It reminds us that permanence is an illusion, and that even the masters of the earth are subject to the whims of the cosmos. Yet, in the freezing darkness of that long winter, deep in the roots of the dead trees there is a heartbeat. We drift to the rise of the mammals. They are small, shrew-like creatures, nocturnal and timid, but they possess a secret weapon. They are warm-blooded, generating their own internal heat, and they have fur to trap it. While the reptiles freeze, the mammals endure. Visualize a family of these tiny survivors huddled together in a burrow lined with dry grass. They are safe underground. The mother nurses her young with milk, a new invention, a liquid bond of love and nutrition that allows the babies to grow fast and strong without needing to hunt. Feel the warmth of that burrow, the cozy intimacy of the nest while the wind howls outside. When the skies finally clear and the sun returns to a changed world, these small, furry beings emerge from the dark, blinking in the light. The monsters are gone. The world is empty and waiting for them. This is the moment your deepest ancestors claimed their inheritance. The age of the mammal has dawned, built on warmth, care, and the resilience of the small. As the sunlight strengthens over this renewed earth, the small, scurrying survivors begin to venture further from their burrows, realizing that the world is no longer a place of terror, but a canvas of infinite opportunity. The great emptiness left by the dinosaurs is a vacuum that nature abhors, and so begins one of the most rapid and joyous expansions of life the planet has ever seen. We drift into the era of the mammalian explosion, a time of wondrous experimentation where the blueprints of life are stretched and reshaped into every conceivable form. Imagine the forests and the plains filling with creatures that are strange, half-familiar ancestors of the animals we know today. Visualize the evolutionary energy radiating outward like a starburst. Some mammals grow immense, filling the shoes of the vanished giants. Picture the Indracotherium, a rhinoceros-like titan as tall as a house, wandering peacefully through the open woodlands, browsing on the treetops. Others shrink and take to the night skies, stretching skin between their fingers to become bats, mastering the dark air. Feel the sense of playfulness in this era, as if life is trying on different costumes to see what fits best. There are predators with jaws like vices, and herbivores with tusks that curve downward. It is a time of filling every niche, every crack in the ecosystem with warm-blooded vitality. The silence of the post-impact winter is replaced by a symphony of grunts, calls, and the rustling of fur against the undergrowth, a testament to the unyielding resilience of our distant kin. Among these adventurous mammals, there is one lineage that makes a choice so counterintuitive, so mystical, that it defies expectation. Having conquered the land, they look back at the sparkling expanse of the ocean and feel a pull, a longing to return to the womb of the world, drift now to the shores of the ancient Tethys Sea, where a wolf-like creature, the Pachycetus, stands in the shallows, hunting for fish. Over millions of years, visualize this creature venturing deeper and deeper into the waves. The water buoys its weight, and slowly the body begins to change, surrendering its legs for the grace of fins. Picture the slow, fluid transformation from a four-legged walker to the sleek, hydrodynamic form of the early whales. The fur disappears, replaced by smooth, insulating blubber. The nostrils migrate from the tip of the snout to the top of the head, becoming the blowhole, allowing them to breathe without ever fully leaving the embrace of the sea. Feel the sensation of weightlessness as these creatures leave the hard ground behind forever, trading the gravity of the continents for the endless, three-dimensional freedom of the deep. It is a poetic return, a closing of the circle. The whales sing their haunting songs in the dark blue, the only mammals to fully reverse the journey their ancestors made eons ago, finding peace once again in the cradle of the ocean. While the whales drift in the deep, a quiet revolution is taking place on the dry land, not among the animals, but among the plants. For most of history, the ground was covered in ferns and forests, but now a new player enters the stage: grass. It seems humble, a simple green blade, but its arrival changes the face of the planet entirely. Visualize the forest thinning out, retreating to the mountains and the river valleys, replaced by vast rolling oceans of emerald green. This is the birth of the savanna, the steppe and the prairie. Imagine standing in the center of a prehistoric plain, the wind rippling through the waist-high grass like waves on the sea. The air smells sweet and dry, filled with the scent of sun-baked hay and dust. This new landscape is open, exposed, and endless. The grass is tough. It grows from the bottom, not the tip, meaning it can be eaten and trampled and yet spring back instantly. It is rich in silica, a glassy grit that makes it hard to chew. This green ocean creates a new kind of world, one of visibility and distance, where the horizon stretches out forever. It invites a new tempo of life, moving away from the slow browsing of the dark forest to the fast rhythmic movement of the open plains. The rustling of the grass becomes the background music of the Cenozoic era, a soothing, whispery sound that blankets the continents. To live in this sea of grass, the animals must change. They need speed to escape predators in the open, and they need machinery to process the tough, gritty food. We drift to the evolution of the great grazers, specifically the horse. Visualize a small, dog-sized creature, Eohippus, stepping timidly through the underbrush of a fading forest. It has spread out toes to walk on soft mud, but as the ground hardens and the grass spreads, watch as the eons sculpt this creature into a masterpiece of engineering. See the legs lengthening, becoming slender and powerful, lifting the animal high above the grass. The toes, once numerous, begin to fuse. The side toes shrink and vanish, leaving only the middle toe, which grows strong and thick, capped with a hard keratin hoof. This is a limb designed for one thing: speed. Feel the rhythmic vibration of the gallop, the thundering of hooves on the hard earth. At the same time, their teeth become tall and ridged, perfect millstones for grinding the abrasive grass. It is a beautiful dance between the plant and the eater. The grass demands a better tooth, and the open plain demands a faster leg. The result is the herd, thousands of animals moving as one fluid entity across the golden plains, a river of life flowing over the grasslands. While the herds thunder across the plains, in the remaining pockets of dense tropical rainforest, a different story is unfolding high in the canopy. Here, the ancestors of humanity are refining a tool that will eventually build civilizations: the grasping hand. Visualize life in the high branches, a world of dappled sunlight and swaying leaves. To survive here, you do not need hooves. You need grip. You need to hold on. Picture your own hand for a moment. Feel the texture of your fingertips. In this ancient forest, claws, which are clumsy and static, slowly flatten into broad, sensitive nails. This reveals the soft, tactile pads of the fingers, rich with nerve endings. Visualize an ancient primate reaching out to grasp a thin branch, the fingers curling around it, the thumb opposing the others to create a secure lock. This is not just about safety, it is about sensation. They can feel the ripeness of fruit, the texture of bark, the grooming of a companion's fur. This tactile sensitivity connects the mind to the world in a new, intimate way. It is the beginning of manipulation, the ability to hold the world and shape it. Feel the security of that grip, the strength in the hand that allows these creatures to dance through the trees, suspended between the earth and the sky. To navigate this complex, three-dimensional maze of branches, another sense must be sharpened. We drift to the evolution of stereoscopic vision. In many animals, the eyes are on the sides of the head, offering a panoramic view to spot danger. But for the tree dwellers, the eyes begin to migrate forward, sitting side by side on the face. Visualize the moment the two fields of vision overlap. Suddenly the world ceases to be a flat tapestry and pops into deep, rich relief. depth perception is born. You can judge the distance to the next branch with mathematical precision. You can see the space between things. The chaotic wall of green leaves separates into layers of foreground, middle ground, and background. Imagine the world snapping into focus, the clarity of the forest sharpening. This shift requires a massive upgrade in the brain to process the dual images, expanding the visual cortex. It is the beginning of a mind that understands geometry, space, and perspective. To look into the eyes of these ancestors is to see a gaze that is focused, intense, and analysing the world directly in front of it. As these primates grow larger and more intelligent, a shift in posture occurs. We move toward the emergence of the apes, the tailless wanderers of the canopy. Most tree dwellers use their tails for balance, a counterweight to their movements. But the ancestors of the apes begin to rely on a different kind of stability. Visualize the tail slowly disappearing, leaving behind the strong, upright torso we recognize in ourselves. Without a tail, the body becomes more vertical. Picture an ancient ape hanging by its long, powerful arms, swinging like a pendulum, a movement known as brachiation. The body is upright, the chest is broad and open, and the spine stiffens to support this verticality. This is a majestic, slow-motion ballet in the trees. They do not scurry, they swing. There is a dignity to this movement, a slow, deliberate confidence. The loss of the tail marks a transition to a larger body, a slower metabolism, and a longer childhood. Feel the heavy, pendulum-like rhythm of swinging from branch to branch, the feeling of being a large, significant presence in the silent canopy, looking down at the world from a throne of leaves. But the climate is changing again. The world is drying, and the great rainforests are shrinking, fragmenting into islands of green separated by seas of tall grass. To survive, our ancestors are forced to descend. We drift to the momentous transition of bipedalism, the act of standing up. Visualize a creature, perhaps a Sahelanthropus or Australopithecus, lowering itself from the safety of the final low branch and stepping onto the savanna floor. It is an awkward, perilous moment. But then the creature rears up on its hind legs. It stands tall. Visualize the spine curving, the hips shifting, the knees locking. Suddenly the eyes are lifted high above the tall grass. They can see the horizon. They can spot the predator stalking in the distance. They can see the location of the next grove of trees. Feel the vulnerability of the exposed belly, but also the power of the new perspective. The hands, once used for walking, are now hanging at the sides, completely free. They are empty, waiting to be filled. The gait is a controlled fall, a rhythmic shifting of weight that is efficient and allows for long-distance travel. It is the first step on a journey that will take this lineage to every corner of the globe. With the hands freed from the duty of walking, they begin to itch with potential. The mind, growing sharper and more curious, begins to project its will onto the inanimate world. We drift to the banks of a dry riverbed, where the first stone tools are born. This is not just about smashing things, it is about understanding the properties of matter. Visualize an ancestor holding a heavy riverstone in one hand and a hammerstone in the other. Hear the sharp, rhythmic clack, clack, clack echoing across the valley. It is the sound of invention. With a precise strike, a flake of rock shears off, leaving an edge sharper than any lion's tooth or eagle's talon. Run your mind's finger along that obsidian-sharp edge. For the first time, a creature has created a permanent object that did not exist in nature. The stone tool is an extension of the hand, a way to cut through the tough hide of a scavenged carcass to access the rich marrow inside. It represents a leap in cognitive ability, the ability to plan, to visualize a shape inside the rock, and to execute that vision. The landscape is no longer just a background. It is a resource, a toolbox waiting to be opened. As the sun sets on the African savanna, the nights are long, cold, and filled with the terrifying sounds of predators, the saber-toothed cats, the hyenas. But then, a new star is born on the Earth, the controlled fire. Whether by capturing a flame from a lightning strike or learning to spark it from friction, this is the moment humanity tamed the sun. Visualize the first campfire crackling in the velvet darkness. It is a circle of warmth and light that pushes back the night. Watch the orange flames dancing, casting long, flickering shadows against the rock walls of a cave. The fire changes everything. It cooks the meat, making it softer and releasing more energy for the growing brain. It provides warmth, allowing these tropical apes to survive in colder lands. But most importantly, feel the social gravity of the fire. It draws everyone in. The tribe gathers around the hearth, shoulder to shoulder, staring into the embers. In this circle of light, under the protection of the flame, storytelling begins. Bonds are forged. The terror of the dark is conquered, replaced by the cozy, hypnotic comfort of the hearth, a comfort that you can still feel today when you stare into a candle or a fireplace. It is the original sanctuary, the place where we became truly human. And within the safety of that glowing circle, as the fire crackles and pops, the silence between the tribe members begins to fill with something new, something that will bind them together more tightly than any rope. We drift now to the birth of complex language. For millions of years, communication was a matter of urgent signals, a shriek for danger, a grunt for effort, a soft coo for comfort. But in the firelight, with the darkness pressing in, the need arose to share not just immediate facts, but dreams, memories, and plans. Visualize the physical transformation happening within the throat. The larynx, the voice box, slowly descends lower in the neck, opening up a cavernous space at the back of the mouth. This simple shift turns the human vocal tract into a majestic instrument, capable of shaping the breath into an infinite variety of clicks, hums, vowels, and consonants. Feel the vibration in your own chest as you imagine these first storytellers. It is the music of thought becoming audible. They begin to name the world, giving a sound to the river, a sound to the moon, a sound to the feeling of sorrow. This gossip creates a web of social understanding, replacing the physical grooming of our primate ancestors with a vocal grooming that soothes and connects. The air around the fire is no longer empty. It is thick with meaning, a shared hallucination of words that allows knowledge to travel from one mind to another without touching. As the mind grows more complex, the body continues to shed its ancient coverings, revealing a vulnerability that is actually a superpower. We drift to the concept of the naked ape. Look at your own skin, smooth and largely free of the thick insulating fur that covers almost every other mammal. This loss of fur is not an accident, but a masterful adaptation to the heat of the chase. Visualize the early hunters running under the blazing midday sun of the African savanna. While the gazelle and the leopard must stop to pant and cool down, the human keeps running. Imagine the sensation of the breeze directly on your skin, the cooling miracle of perspiration. Millions of tiny sweat glands act as a biological air conditioning system, bathing the body in moisture that evaporates and draws the heat away. This allowed our ancestors to become persistent hunters, chasing prey not with speed, but with endurance, running them down until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Feel the freedom of this naked skin, the way it connects you directly to the elements, the warmth of the sun, the cool of the rain, the brush of the tall grass. It turned the human body into an engine of incredible stamina, capable of outlasting almost anything on Earth, provided it could keep cool. With this endurance and this new social glue, the horizon begins to call. The world is too large to remain in one place. We drift to the Great Migration, the moment when humanity spilled out of its cradle in Africa and began to walk. It is a journey not of miles, but of generations. Visualize a small band of people standing at the edge of the Red Sea, or perhaps the Sinai Peninsula, looking across the water to the unknown green hills beyond. They take the first steps into the vastness of Asia. Feel the rhythm of this walking, a slow, steady dispersal that flows like water filling a vessel. They encounter landscapes their ancestors never dreamed of, the humid, hanging jungles of India, the vast, wind-swept steppes of Central Asia, and the island chains of the Pacific. With every step, they adapt. Their skin tones shift, darkening in the tropics to shield against the sun, and paling in the north to catch the weak light. Their bodies change shape, becoming stockier in the cold and taller in the heat. It is a river of humanity branching out, exploring every corner of the globe. Imagine the resilience required to walk into the unknown day after day, driven by curiosity and the search for food, carrying the sacred fire with them into the mists of the New World. As these wanderers push northward into the chill of Europe, they do not find an empty land, they find the others. We drift to the meeting with the Neanderthals. For a long time, history painted them as brutish and dumb, but we now know this was a lie. Visualize a forest in the grip of an ice age, where the trees are coated in frost. Emerging from the mist is a figure, shorter than you but immensely broad, with heavy bones and muscles coiled like steel cables. This is the Neanderthal, the master of the cold. Look into their eyes. They are large, deep, and soulful. They bury their dead with flowers. They care for their injured. They make jewellery from eagle talons. Feel the tension of that first meeting between the wandering sapiens and the resident Neanderthals. It is not necessarily a war. There is curiosity. There is recognition. In the quiet of the caves, these two lineages of humanity mingled. They shared food, they shared fire, and they shared blood. Most people alive today carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA within them, a silent legacy of these ancient cousins who taught us how to survive the bitter cold. They are not gone. They live on within the architecture of your own cells, a memory of a time when we were not the only human species on Earth. But the cold of the north is relentless, and biological adaptation is slow. To survive the freezing winds of the Ice Age, the mind had to invent what the body could not grow. We drift to the invention of clothing. Imagine the sensation of the bitter wind biting into that smooth, sweat-cooling skin that evolved in the tropics. It is a pain that demands a solution. Visualize an ancestor holding a flint scraper, carefully cleaning the hide of a reindeer. It is messy, difficult work. But then comes the true genius, the bone needle. Picture a sliver of bone, polished smooth, with a tiny eye drilled into one end. This small tool is as revolutionary as the wheel. With a thread made of sinew or plant fibre, disjointed skins can be stitched together to form a tailored shape. Feel the weight of a heavy fur coat resting on your shoulders for the first time. It is a second skin, a portable microclimate that you can take with you. Suddenly the Arctic is no longer a death sentence. The human being can encase themselves in the warmth of the wolf or the bear, borrowing their adaptations. This mastery of materials allowed us to walk into the teeth of the storm and remain warm, turning the hostile white landscape into a home. And speaking of the wolf, out in the snowy dark, eyes are watching. We drift to one of the most heartwarming chapters in our history, the domestication of the dog. It likely began not with capture but with mutual tolerance. Visualize a pack of wolves following a band of human hunters. The humans leave behind piles of bones and scraps. The wolves scavenge the leftovers. They are the cleanup crew. Over centuries, the distance between the campfire and the wolves shrinks. The bolder, less aggressive wolves venture closer. Visualize a moment in the twilight when a human throws a piece of meat not away from the fire but near it. A wolf steps forward, hesitant, tail low. The eyes meet, predator to predator, and find a lack of malice. Slowly the wolf lies down. Feel the incredible softness of that fur as a human hand touches it for the first time. It is the beginning of a profound partnership. The dog lends its nose and its ears to the human. The human lends its fire and its strategy to the dog. They sleep back to back for warmth. This biological alliance changed us. It taught us stewardship and expanded our pack to include another species. We were no longer alone in the night. We had a guardian who would bark at the dark. With the dog guarding the entrance, the human mind is free to turn inward, to explore the caverns of the imagination. We drift to the deep, echoing chambers of the painted caves. Think of Lascaux or Chauvet. To reach these places, you must crawl through tight, suffocating tunnels, moving deep into the belly of the earth, far from the light of day. Visualize the artist standing in a vast underground cathedral, holding a primitive lamp, a hollow stone filled with animal fat and a moss wick. The flickering orange light dances across the undulating limestone walls. The artist takes a mouthful of red ochre pigment and places a hand against the cold, wet rock. A spray of colour. They pull the hand away, leaving a negative imprint, a handprint. I was here. I exist. Then they begin to paint the animals, the bison, the mammoth, the lion. These are not static images. They are painted on the bumps and curves of the rock so that when the torchlight flickers, the animals seem to move, to breathe, to run. This is the birth of cinema, of art, of religion. It is the externalization of the mind, taking the visions from inside the head and placing them in the world for others to see. Feel the sacred hush of that cave, the smell of the damp earth, and the presence of the spirits that dwell in the stone. The world outside the cave, however, is locked in the grip of the last glacial maximum. We drift to the height of the Ice Age. The world is white, silent, and vast. Great sheets of blue ice 2 miles thick crush the continents, scraping the mountains down to their roots. The sea levels plummet, exposing vast land bridges between the continents. Visualize the silence of this frozen world. The air is dry and crystal clear. The skies are piercing electric blue. Across the tundra, herds of woolly mammoths move like shaggy ships on a frozen ocean, their tusks curving like scimitars. To survive here requires a mental fortitude that is hard to fathom. Humans are small specks in this white expanse, yet they endure. They build shelters of mammoth bones covered in skins lit by lamps of blubber. They gather around the hearth, telling stories to keep the darkness at bay. Feel the crunch of the dry snow underfoot, the steam of your breath freezing instantly in the air. This harsh pressure cooker refined us, forcing us to cooperate, to plan, and to rely on one another completely. It forged a resilience that is written into our very DNA, the ability to face the winter and wait for the spring, and eventually the spring does come, the glaciers retreat, the rivers swell, and the world turns green again. But this time, humanity does not just return to the hunt. We drift to the Neolithic Revolution, the moment we stopped wandering and put our hands into the soil. Perhaps it began by accident. Some seeds dropped near a camp that sprouted into wheat or barley. Visualize the realization that you do not have to search for food. You can make it. You can tame the plant just as you tamed the dog. Picture the first field, a patch of golden grass swaying in the breeze, enclosed by a rough fence. The act of planting a seed is an act of faith in the future. It means you must stay, you must wait, you cannot leave. Feel the change in the rhythm of life. It slows down, it becomes circular, tied to the seasons of rain and harvest. The legs, strong from thousands of years of walking, now learn to kneel in the dirt. The hands, skilled with the spear, now learn the gentle touch required to weed and to water. The wild anxiety of the hunt is replaced by the patient anxiety of the farmer, watching the sky, praying for rain. It is the anchoring of the human spirit to a specific piece of earth. As the fields grow, so do the families. The small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers merge to form the first true villages. We drift to the rise of settlement and the birth of the city. Imagine a cluster of mud brick houses huddled together near a river in Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley. The walls are baked by the sun, cool on the inside, warm on the outside. There is a new sound here, the hum of many voices. It is no longer just a family, it is a society. People begin to specialize. One person bakes the bread, another shapes the pottery, another watches the stars. Visualize the first wall being built around the settlement, a line of stone that says, "This is ours, you are safe here." The concept of home transforms from a temporary shelter into a permanent legacy, a place where your ancestors are buried and your children will be born. Feel the sense of solidity, of weight. The wandering is over. We have cast down our roots like the great oak trees. We have decided to build our own environments, to create islands of order in the chaos of nature. The smoke from hundreds of hearths rises together into the twilight, a signal fire to the gods that humanity has staked its claim. And within these walls of sun-baked mud, amidst the hum of the gathering tribe, a new kind of silence is born, the silence of the vessel. We drift to the invention of pottery, a humble yet profound leap in our ability to hold on to the world. Before this, water slipped through fingers and food rotted where it fell. But now, visualize the hands of an artisan pressing into the cool, wet river clay. Feel the spinning motion, the centering of the earth, as the walls of a pot rise up, forming a hollow belly. When this clay is surrendered to the fire, it undergoes a metamorphosis, hardening into stone that does not melt in the rain. Imagine the cool, smooth texture of a fired jar resting in the corner of a dimly lit room. It is a time capsule. For the first time, humanity can store the surplus of the summer to survive the barren winter. This vessel changes the perception of time. We no longer live merely hand to mouth, but can plan, save, and accumulate. The jar holds not just grain or water, but the promise of the future. It allows the mind to relax, knowing that tomorrow's hunger has already been answered. Feel the weight of that security, the heavy, grounding presence of the pantry, allowing the heartbeat of the village to slow down and find a rhythm of peace rather than panic. In the dark warmth of these clay jars, another invisible miracle is taking place, a biological accident that will alter the human mind. We drift to the discovery of fermentation. Imagine a bowl of gruel or a jar of crushed grapes left out in the warm air. Tiny, invisible spores of yeast, floating on the wind like microscopic dust, land in the sweet mixture. They begin to feed, bubbling and foaming, transforming the sugars into something new. Visualize the first brave soul who tasted this spoiled liquid. Instead of sickness, they found a strange warmth spreading through their limbs, a softening of the sharp edges of reality. Alcohol was born. In a world where water was often filled with dangerous bacteria, this fermented brew was safe, sterile, and preserved. But more than that, feel the social lubrication it provided. The shared cup became a ritual, dissolving anxiety and binding the community together in a haze of relaxation. It was a co-evolution with a fungus. We fed the yeast, and the yeast gave us a liquid that killed pathogens and unlocked the dreaming mind. It turned the granary into a temple of transformation, where the hard work of the harvest could be transmuted into joy and rest. As the diet of the village changes, so too does the biology of the villagers. We move to a silent mutation, a shift in the very code of our DNA driven by our relationship with the animals. We drift to the evolution of lactose tolerance. For most of history and for most mammals, milk was a gift only for infants. Once weaned, the body stopped processing it, but as the herds of cattle and goats became part of the family, standing close in the pen, a new source of energy presented itself. Visualize the white, frothy milk, rich in fat and protein, a perfect food available without killing the animal. In the harsh winters of the north or the dry droughts of the desert, those who could drink this liquid survived, while others faded. A random mutation, a tiny switch in the genes, stayed on, allowing adults to digest the milk. Feel the strength of this adaptation spreading through the population, generation by generation. It is a biological echo of our culture. Because we chose to herd, our bodies change to match our choice. It reminds us that we are not finished products, but fluid beings, constantly being reshaped by the lifestyle we adopt and the food we eat, While we shaped ourselves, we also began to shape the green world around us with an artist's eye. We drift to the concept of artificial selection, the slow sculpting of wild plants into tame crops. Visualize a wild field of teosinte grass in ancient Mexico. It is scrawny, with hard, tiny kernels that threaten to break teeth. But human hands are patient. Year after year, the farmers pick the slightly larger seeds, the slightly softer kernels, and plant only them. Over centuries, the plant transforms. The tiny spike becomes a cob. The hard kernel becomes a juicy golden nugget. Maize, corn, is born. This is not natural evolution, it is human-directed evolution. We became the bees, the wind, and the selector. Visualize the vast fields of wheat, rice, and corn that now blanket the earth, their heads heavy and bowing in the wind. These plants have lost the ability to reproduce without us. They need our hands to husk them and sow them. We entered into a marriage with the plants. We promised to clear the forest and water the soil, and in return they promised to feed our cities. Feel the intimacy of this bond, the golden connection between the sweat of the farmer and the sustenance of the crop. With the harvest gathered, the problem of weight arises. How do we move the heavy bounty of the earth? We drift to the invention of the wheel. It is strange to think that for millions of years nature never invented the wheel. There are no animals with rolling limbs. It is a purely human dream, born from the potter's turntable and the rolling log. Visualize the moment a solid wooden disc is fitted to an axle. The friction that once dragged against the ground vanishes. The heavy load becomes light. Watch the cart rolling down a beaten path, the wheels turning in a hypnotic, perfect circle. It is the conquest of distance. Suddenly the village is not an island. Goods can travel, ideas can travel. The circle of the wheel mirrors the circle of the sun and the moon, a divine shape brought down to the mud of the road. Hear the rhythmic creak thump of the ox cart, a steady, soothing heartbeat of commerce and travel. It represents the beginning of flow, the smoothing out of the rough world to allow humanity to glide across the surface of the planet. As the carts rumble along, they carry something new and precious, a material that is not stone, nor bone, nor wood. We drift to the dawn of metallurgy, specifically the Bronze Age. Picture a roaring fire hotter than a cooking hearth, fed by charcoal and breath. Into this inferno, green rocks, malachite, are thrown. Visualize the magic of the transformation. The solid rock weeps. It turns into a glowing orange liquid flowing like water. When it cools, it is no longer brittle like flint. It is tough, shiny, and bendable. Copper meets tin to create bronze. Feel the weight of a bronze tool in your hand. It is cool, dense, and resonates with a singing tone when struck. This is the mastery of matter itself, rearranging the atomic structure of the earth to suit our needs. The grey and brown world of the Stone Age gives way to the flashing gold and copper hues of the Metal Age. It brought a new durability to our lives, a material that could be melted down and reborn, over and over again, an eternal cycle of renewal in the forge. With the complexity of trade, the surplus of grain, and the exchange of bronze, the human mind reaches a limit. It can no longer remember everything. We drift to the invention of writing. It begins not as poetry, but as accounting. Visualize a scribe in ancient Sumer, sitting in the shade of a temple, holding a wet tablet of clay. He holds a reed stylus, cut to a sharp wedge. He presses it into the clay. Wedge, line, wedge. These marks are not pictures, they are codes. They represent a sheep, a jar of oil, a king's decree. When the clay dries, the thought is frozen in time. This is the externalization of memory. For the first time, a human thought can exist outside the human brain. It can travel across miles without changing. It can speak to generations not yet born. Feel the profound silence of a library or an archive, a place filled with the voices of the dead waiting to be heard. The invention of writing allowed us to build a collective brain, a vast repository of knowledge that grows with every century, ensuring that we never have to start from scratch again. As the written word binds laws and the walls bind the people, the population swells. We drift to the rise of the city and the evolution of immunity. The ancient cities, Babylon, Uruk, Memphis, were biological pressure cookers, thousands of people and their animals living closer than ever before. Visualize the crowded streets, the narrow alleys, the shared air. In this density, microscopic life blooms. Bacteria and viruses jump from person to person, from cow to human. It is a time of sickness, a crucible of fever. But look at the resilience of the body. In the invisible battlefield of the blood, the human immune system is getting an upgrade. White blood cells learn to recognize new enemies, forging antibodies that act as biological shields. Those who survive the city pass these shields on to their children. Over generations, the urban human becomes a fortress of immunity, capable of withstanding plagues that would wipe out isolated tribes. Feel the quiet power of your own immune system right now, a vigilant army patrolling your veins, the legacy of ancestors who survived the crowded, messy, vibrant birth of civilization. From the crowded streets, we look outward to the open steppe, where a new speed is being unlocked. We drift to the mounting of the horse. We spoke of the horse's evolution before, but now, visualize the moment a human dares to climb onto its back. It is the merger of two species into one, the centaur. Feel the sudden elevation, the world dropping away as you sit 6 feet in the air. But more than that, feel the surge of power beneath you. The human, limited to a slow jog, borrows the thundering heart and the driving legs of the beast. The horizon, which was once a day's walk away, is now reached in an hour. This mastery of the horse shrinks the planet. Messages fly across empires. Cultures collide and mix at the speed of a gallop. The wind rushing past your ears is the sound of acceleration. It is a partnership built on trust and touch, a connection through the reins that allows the human will to steer the raw power of nature. Finally, having conquered the land, the human gaze turns to the terrifying, trackless expanse of the open ocean. We drift to the wayfinders, the Polynesian navigators who dared to sail into the blue void. Imagine a double-hulled canoe, bound together with coconut fibre, sitting in the middle of the Pacific, thousands of miles from land. There is no GPS, no compass, no map. There is only the reading of the world. Visualize the navigator sitting in the stern, eyes half closed, feeling the swell of the ocean against the hull. He can distinguish the bounce of a wave reflected from a distant island versus a wave from the open sea. He watches the birds, he reads the colour of the clouds, but mostly he looks up. The night sky is a vast, rotating dome of stars, a celestial grid. He knows the rising and setting point of every constellation. He draws a line from the Southern Cross to the horizon and knows the way home. Feel the utter trust in the natural world, the ability to read the subtle language of the wind and the stars. It is the ultimate expansion, the human spirit floating on a chip of wood in an infinite blue universe, guided only by the lights of the galaxy. And as the wayfinders chart their course by the slow rotation of the galaxy, the spirit of connection begins to weave a web not just across the oceans, but across the vast, arid interiors of the continents. We drift from the solitude of the open sea to the rhythmic swaying of the camel caravans on the Silk Road. Imagine a river, not of water, but of commerce and culture, winding its way through the golden dunes of the Gobi and the high, frozen passes of the Pamir Mountains. Visualize the slow, steady pace of the Bactrian camels, their heavy, shaggy coats dusting the ground, their breath-forming clouds in the crisp morning air. Hear the melodic chiming of the brass bells around their necks, a sound that echoes off the canyon walls, announcing the arrival of the strange and the beautiful. This is the first nervous system of the world. It is here that the soft, shimmering thread of silk, spun by a tiny caterpillar in the gardens of the East, travels thousands of miles to touch the skin of a noble in the West. But more than silk, visualize the invisible cargo carried in the saddlebags: stories, mathematics, philosophies, and religions. As travellers sit around the nightly fires at the caravanserais, sipping tea and staring into the flames, they exchange the seeds of civilization. The genetic pools of East and West, separated for millennia, begin to touch and mingle once more. It is a slow, dusty mixing of the human family, reminding us that no mountain range is high enough to keep us apart forever. From this exchange of goods comes an exchange of ideas, leading to a quiet revolution in the landscape of the mind. We drift to the invention of zero. It seems like a simple thing, a circle drawn in the sand, but it is a concept that required a profound leap of abstract thought. For eons, the human mind could only count what was there: 1 deer, 2 stones, 3 days. To count nothing, to give a value to the void, was a mystical breakthrough. Visualize a scholar in ancient India sitting in meditation, contemplating the concept of shunya, emptiness. He draws a circle, a shape with no beginning and no end, a portal into the infinite. This symbol allows for the placeholder, the ability to build vast numbers, to calculate the movement of the planets and the geometry of the stars. Feel the calmness of that zero, a resting place in the chaotic world of numbers. It is the silence between the notes that makes the music. It is the empty space in the cup that makes it useful. This mental tool unlocked the language of the universe, mathematics, allowing us to describe reality with a precision that words could never achieve. It is a testament to the power of the human imagination to give substance to the invisible, turning nothingness into the foundation of everything. As the mind expands with new concepts, the hunger to share them grows, leading us to a noisy, clanking, wonderful machine that changed the memory of the species. We drift to the invention of the printing press. Before this, knowledge was a rare jewel, locked in handwritten manuscripts guarded by the few. A book was worth a farm. But now, visualize the heavy wooden frame of the press smelling of oil, iron, and oak. See the hands of the printer arranging the lead type, tiny metal letters clicking into place, forming a backward mirror of a thought. He inks the plate, a sticky black sheen that glistens in the candlelight. With a pull of the heavy lever, the paper is pressed down. Clunk, hiss. When it is peeled away, the thought is duplicated. Perfect, permanent, repeatable. Visualize the pages fluttering out like autumn leaves, carried on the wind to every corner of the world. Suddenly, the words of a scientist, a poet, or a philosopher can be in 1,000 places at once. The collective brain of humanity goes into hyperdrive. We're no longer isolated thinkers. We're a network. Feel the texture of the paper under your fingertips, the roughness of the ink, knowing that this technology democratized the dream of learning, inviting everyone to the table of knowledge. With books spreading the known, the human eye begins to hunger for the unknown, for the worlds that lie beyond our natural vision. We drift to the grinding of the glass lens. It begins with a simple curiosity, rubbing a piece of glass with sand until it curves and catches the light. But this curved glass becomes a key that unlocks 2 hidden universes. First, look downward. Visualize the first microscope, a brass tube focusing on a single drop of pond water. To the naked eye, it is just water. But through the lens, a chaotic, vibrant city is revealed. Tiny, translucent creatures dart and spiral, a frenzy of life that has existed secretly alongside us for billions of years. We realize we're giants walking through a microscopic jungle. Then, look upward. Visualize the telescope turning toward the night sky. The blurry smear of the Milky Way resolves into millions of distinct diamond stars. The smooth face of the moon reveals itself to be a scarred landscape of craters and mountains. The lens extends the reach of our senses, breaking the limits of our biology. It teaches us humility, showing us that the universe is both much smaller and much larger than we ever dared to dream. From the observation of nature, we move to the mastery of its forces. Deep beneath the earth, The fossilized sunlight of the carboniferous forests, the coal we visualized earlier, waits. We drift to the Industrial Revolution and the birth of the steam engine. It is the moment humanity creates a heart that beats with fire and water. Visualize the great iron piston, heavy and cold. But then, the coal is shoveled into the furnace. The black rocks crackle and release their ancient heat. The water boils, turning into expanding steam, a white ghost pushing with immense pressure. Hiss, thump, hiss, thump. The piston moves, the wheel turns. For the first time, we have motion that does not come from a muscle or the wind. It is a tireless rhythmic beast. Feel the vibration of the floor in the factory, the deep resonant bass of the engine that drives the looms, the pumps and the trains. The world begins to shrink. Distances that took weeks to travel now take days. The rhythm of human life shifts from the cycle of the sun to the cycle of the machine, a steady driving tempo that accelerates the evolution of society itself. As the steam engines puff their white clouds, a cleaner, brighter magic is being captured in the laboratories. We drift to the taming of electricity. For all of history, this force was a terrifying god in the sky, lightning. But now, we learn to coax it into a wire. Visualize a copper thread stretching across the landscape, a nervous system for the planet. Picture the moment the first light bulb is screwed into its socket. The filament, a fragile thread of carbon, hangs in the vacuum. The switch is thrown. The energy rushes in and the filament glows, not with fire, but with pure incandescence. A soft, warm yellow light pushes back the shadows. The night, which had ruled half of our existence since the beginning of time, is conquered. We can read, work, and play after the sun goes down. Visualize a city at night from above, a sprawling constellation of golden lights mirroring the stars in the sky. This energy, silent and invisible, flows into our homes, heating our food, washing our clothes, and carrying our voices. It is the lifeblood of the modern organism, a humming vibration that connects us all to a central pulse of power. With the ground lit and the engines humming, the human gaze turns once again to the birds, to the ancient envy of the Archaeopteryx. We drift to the invention of flight. It is a dream that lived in our myths for thousands of years. But on a windy dune in Kitty Hawk, it becomes physics. Visualize the frame of wood and canvas, fragile as a kite, shivering in the coastal wind. The propeller spins, invisible in its speed. The machine trundles forward, gaining speed, bouncing on the sand, until, miraculously, the wheels leave the ground. There is a pocket of air beneath the wings. We are airborne. Feel the stomach-dropping sensation of the lift, the sudden shift in perspective. The trees become bushes, the rivers become silver ribbons, the world flattens into a map. We have joined the brotherhood of the sky. We are no longer bound to the 2D surface of the earth. This leap allows us to cross oceans in hours, to rise above the clouds and see the sun when it is raining below. It is the ultimate freedom, the realization of the oldest human wish, to fly. But we do not just wish to send our bodies through the air, we wish to send our thoughts. We drift to the discovery of radio waves. The air around us is not empty. It is thick with invisible waves, rippling like a pond. We simply needed to learn how to make a splash. Visualize a tall metal tower transmitting a silent pulse into the sky. Thousands of miles away, in a wooden box in a living room, a crystal captures that pulse. The air begins to speak. Music, laughter, and news travel through the ether, passing through walls and mountains as if they were mist. Close your eyes and imagine the global village sitting around the radio in the evening. Just as the tribe sat around the fire, the world now sits around the invisible hearth of the broadcast. We can hear a voice from the other side of the planet in real time. It creates a simultaneous human experience, a shared consciousness where millions of people laugh at the same joke at the same exact second. It is the weaving of a telepathic web where minds can touch without bodies meeting. while our voices expand outward, our understanding turns sharply inward, diving deep into the microscopic nucleus of the cell. We drift to the discovery of DNA, the double helix. We had long known that children resembled their parents, but the mechanism was a mystery. Now, the library is opened. Visualize a twisting spiral staircase made of molecules, floating in the center of every cell in your body. It is incredibly long, yet packed into a space smaller than a speck of dust. This is the ancient scroll, the instruction manual for you. It contains the recipe for your eye color, the shape of your hands, the way you laugh. But it also contains the history of life. If you read the code far enough back, you find the chapters written by the fish, the reptiles, and the early primates. Feel the profound sense of continuity. You're a walking museum of evolutionary history. This discovery changes our relationship with nature. We realize that the genetic language of a human is nearly identical to that of a mouse, a banana, or a whale. We're all written in the same ink. It is the ultimate scientific proof of our oneness with the living world. And finally, propelled by our mastery of fire, metal, and math, we gather the courage to leave the cradle entirely. We drift to the view of the Earth from space. The rocket, a pillar of controlled explosion, punches through the atmosphere, shaking off the grip of gravity that has held life down for 4 billion years. Silence. The roar of the engines cuts out. You're floating in the great velvet void, and you turn your head to look back. Visualize the blue marble hanging in the darkness. It is shockingly beautiful, a glowing gem of azure, white swirls and soft greens. From this vantage point, there are no borders, there are no wars, there are no separate nations. There is only one fragile, finite island of life in an infinite sea of nothingness. Feel the phenomenon of the overview effect, a cognitive shift that brings tears to the eyes of astronauts. You realize that the thin layer of atmosphere, delicate as the skin of an apple, is the only thing protecting every being that has ever lived. This perspective is the culmination of our journey so far. It is the moment the universe uses the human eye to look back at itself and feel a surge of protective love for the home we all share. And from that breathless vantage point, floating in the velvet silence of space, looking down at the luminous web of our cities, we realize that we have wrapped the planet in a new kind of nervous system. We drift now to the dawn of the Silicon Age, the moment where evolution leapt from biology into pure information. Just as the first nerve cells connected the jellyfish and the first copper wires connected the telegraph, we have now spun a cocoon of light around the world. Visualize the fibre optic cables resting on the dark, silent floor of the Atlantic Ocean. They are thin, glass veins pulsating with the collective thoughts, dreams and memories of the entire human species. In this digital realm, distance has been erased completely. A thought born in Tokyo travels at the speed of light to arrive in New York before a heart can beat twice. Picture this invisible network as a glowing lattice of energy, a second atmosphere that hums with data. It is the externalization of the human brain, a global mind that never sleeps, never forgets, and is always growing. Feel the sensation of being part of this colossal organism, a single node in a network of billions. It allows us to share our empathy, our art, and our knowledge instantly, weaving a tapestry of consciousness that transcends the limitations of our physical bodies. It is the latest layer of the Earth's evolutionary skin, lithosphere, biosphere, atmosphere, and now the noosphere, the sphere of human thought wrapping the globe in a warm electric embrace. But as we marvel at the vastness of the external network, we must also turn our gaze inward, for there is a universe just as complex existing within your own body. We drift to the discovery of the microbiome. For centuries we believed we were singular individuals, solitary captains of our own vessels. But the truth is far more beautiful and strange. You are not one. You are a legion. Visualize the landscape of your own body as a planet. On your skin, in your gut, and in your lungs, there are trillions of microscopic passengers, bacteria, viruses, and fungi. They outnumber your human cells. Imagine them as a lush, invisible garden, a coral reef of life that you carry with you everywhere. These are not invaders, they are your oldest friends. They digest your food, they train your immune system, and they even speak to your brain, influencing your mood and your cravings. Feel a sense of gratitude for this silent, bustling community. You are a walking ecosystem, a host to a biodiversity that is unique to you. The realization that we are composite beings, symbiotic colonies walking on two legs, dissolves the ego and reminds us that cooperation is the fundamental rule of life. You are never truly alone, for you are a guardian of a vast microscopic civilization that relies on you for its very existence. Deep within this internal ocean, and in the literal oceans of the world, life has developed a way to create its own stars. We drift to the phenomenon of bioluminescence. In the crushing darkness of the deep sea, where the sun's rays can never reach, life did not surrender to the blackness. Instead, it became the light. Visualize a deep-sea jellyfish, drifting in the abyssal void. Suddenly, a ripple of blue neon pulses down its bell. It is a chemical miracle, a cold fire that generates light without heat. Picture the darkness coming alive with these phantom lights, green sparks, flashing reds, and shimmering blues. It is a galaxy beneath the waves. This light is used to hunt, to hide, and to find a mate in the eternal night. Imagine the firefly in a summer meadow blinking its code of desire to the darkness. This ability to create light is one of nature's most poetic adaptations, a refusal to accept the dark. It reminds us that even in the deepest shadows, life has the potential to shine, to become a beacon. Feel the wonder of holding a glowworm in your hand, a tiny living star that proves that light is not just something we receive from the sun, but something we can generate from within. While some creatures make light, others have learned to see without it, navigating the world through the architecture of sound. We drift to the evolution of the echolocation. Visualize a bat flitting through the night forest, or a dolphin gliding through the murky river. To them, the darkness is not empty. It is textured and defined by noise. They send out a sound, a click, a chirp, that travels through the air or water, bounces off a moth or a stone, and returns to their sensitive ears. Visualize the brain taking these echoes and instantly painting a 3D image of the world. They see with sound. They can detect the texture of a wing, the distance of a branch, the speed of a fish, all in pitch blackness. Imagine what it would be like to perceive the world this way, not as a flat image, but as a volume of vibrations. It is a sensory superpower that turns the air into a tactile map. It teaches us that there are many ways to perceive reality, and that what we see with our eyes is just a fraction of the data that surrounds us. Feel the precision of the dolphin's click, a beam of sound that cuts through the murky water, illuminating the path ahead with the clarity of a flashlight. If echolocation is about finding the truth in the dark, our next concept is about the art of a beautiful lie. We drift to the evolution of camouflage and the masters of disguise, the cephalopods. Visualize an octopus resting on a colourful coral reef. In the blink of an eye, its skin shifts. The smooth texture becomes bumpy and spiked like a rock. The red colour drains away, replaced by the mottled beige of the sand. This is not magic. It is biology. Under the skin are thousands of tiny sacs of pigment called chromatophores, which the octopus can expand or contract with its mind. It is a living canvas, painting itself into the background. Imagine the sensation of being able to dissolve into your surroundings, to become invisible by becoming one with the environment. It is the ultimate form of safety, a fluidity of identity that allows the creature to hide in plain sight. From the stick insect looking exactly like a twig to the snow leopard vanishing against the grey rocks, nature loves a mask. This adaptation speaks to the value of stillness and observation, of blending in rather than standing out, and finding protection in the embrace of the landscape itself. As the seasons turn and the world grows cold, the landscape itself seems to sleep. Nature has developed a profound strategy for enduring the harshness of time. We drift to the concept of hibernation. It is more than just a long nap. It is a suspension of life, a pressing of the pause button on existence. Visualize a great bear, heavy with autumn fat, curling up in the deep roots of a hollow tree as the first snow begins to fall. The breathing slows and slows. The heart rate drops from 40 beats a minute to just 8. The body temperature lowers, matching the cool earth. The bear enters a state of torpor, a twilight zone between sleep and death. Outside, the blizzard rages, the winds howl and the food vanishes. But inside the den, there is only a slow, rhythmic stillness. The metabolic fire burns low, preserving energy, waiting for the return of the sun. Feel the deep, heavy comfort of this state, the ultimate permission to rest. It reminds us that rest is not a sign of weakness, but a survival strategy. To withdraw, to conserve, to go inward when the world is harsh, is a wisdom as old as the mammals themselves. It is the promise that winter is temporary and that by slowing down, we ensure we will be there to greet the spring. While some sleep through the seasons, others choose to chase the sun across the globe. We drift to the miracle of migration and the internal compass. Visualize the Arctic tern, a small, elegant seabird. Every year it flies from the North Pole to the South Pole and back again, a journey of 40,000 miles. It sees more daylight than any other creature on Earth. But how does it find its way across the featureless ocean? Inside the eye and the beak of the bird, and even in the brain of the sea turtle, are tiny crystals of magnetite. These creatures can literally feel the magnetic field of the Earth. Visualize the planet surrounded by invisible lines of force, arching from pole to pole. To the bird, these lines are like a glowing highway in the sky. They do not need a map. They feel the direction of north as a physical sensation. Imagine having this sixth sense, a pull in your chest that guides you unerringly toward your home. It speaks to the connection between biology and geology, how the living flesh has tuned itself to the spinning iron core of the planet. It is a journey of faith, driven by an invisible force, trusting that the path will lead to safety. In these journeys, life often finds that the best way to survive is not to compete, but to cooperate. We drift to the beautiful complexity of symbiosis, best seen in the bustling cities of the coral reef. A piece of coral looks like a stone, but it is a colony of tiny animals, polyps, living in a house of limestone. But the polyp is not alone. Living inside its clear tissue are millions of microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. It is a perfect marriage. The coral provides a safe house and carbon dioxide. The algae in turn use the sun to make sugar and feed the coral. This partnership is what gives the reef its brilliant colours, the gold, the purple, the green. Visualize this relationship, a microscopic trade agreement that builds mountains in the sea. Without each other, they would perish. The reef teaches us that independence is an illusion. The strongest structures are built on mutual aid. Feel the harmony of this exchange, the balance of giving and receiving that turns a barren ocean floor into a vibrant, teeming metropolis of life. But what happens when the structure is broken? Nature has an answer for that as well, a power that we humans dream of possessing. We drift to the miracle of regeneration. Visualize the humble axolotl, a smiling aquatic salamander native to the lakes of Mexico. If this creature loses a leg, or a tail, or even a piece of its heart, it does not scar, it does not give up. Instead, the cells at the wound revert to a youthful stem cell state. They remember the blueprint of the body. Slowly, perfectly, the limb grows back. Bone, muscle, nerve, and skin, reformed as if nothing ever happened. Imagine this potential for renewal, the ability to undo damage completely. While we heal with scars, these creatures heal with restoration. It is a symbol of hope, a biological proof that loss does not have to be permanent. It speaks to the resilience of the blueprint of life, the stubborn determination of the body to make itself whole again. Feel the sensation of knitting together, of mending, of the incredible intelligence inherent in every cell to know its place and its purpose. To understand where this intelligence comes from, we must look at the record of the past, not written in books, but in the stone itself. We drift finally to the concept of deep time and the science of stratigraphy. Visualize standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon. Look down into the vast abyss. You're not looking at rocks, you're looking at time frozen in solid form. See the bands of colour, the red sandstone, the white limestone, the grey shale. Each layer is a page in a giant book. The layer at the bottom was once a muddy ocean floor 500 million years ago. The layer above it was a windswept desert. The layer above that, a swamp forest. Fossils are trapped in these layers like pressed flowers in a diary. To descend into the canyon is to walk backward through evolution. Feel the immense weight of the years, the slow, grinding deposition of sediment that builds the world up, grain by grain. It creates a sense of vertigo, a realization of how short the human story is compared to the epic saga of the earth. But rather than making us feel small, let it make us feel held. We are standing on the shoulders of eons, supported by the bedrock of history, the latest chapter in a story that has been writing itself for 4 billion years. As we rest on this bedrock, we turn our attention to the air we breathe and the invisible currents that carry life across the globe. We drift to the phenomenon of aerial plankton. We often think of the sky as empty space, a void between the ground and the stars. But this is an illusion. Visualize the atmosphere as a thin blue ocean. Just as the sea is filled with drifting plankton, the sky is filled with tiny life. Spiders, suspended on threads of silk, float miles above the earth, riding the jet streams. Microscopic spores, pollen and bacteria drift like dust motes in a sunbeam, travelling from continent to continent. There are clouds teeming with biological ice nucleators, bacteria that evolve to freeze water, creating rain to carry them back to the soil. Visualize this invisible highway above your head, a constant, silent migration of genetic material. It connects the rainforests of South America to the deserts of Africa. It reminds us that the air is a living medium, a breath shared by the entire planet. Feel the lightness of floating in this upper atmosphere, drifting effortlessly on the wind, part of the great global circulation of life. From the high atmosphere, we descend to the most intimate and aggressive form of evolution, the arms race between predator and prey, specifically the evolution of venom. It is a dark miracle, a chemical weapon refined over millions of years. Visualize a cone snail slowly moving across the ocean floor, or a viper coiled in the desert sand. They do not rely on muscle or speed, they rely on chemistry. Venom is a cocktail of proteins perfectly designed to unlock the cells of another creature. It is precision engineering at a molecular level, but nature seeks balance. As the snake evolves a more potent venom, the mongoose evolves a resistance, a biological shield that neutralizes the toxin. This Red Queen race, running just to stay in place, drives evolution forward, forcing creatures to become more complex, more specialized. But there is a twist. These same deadly toxins, when used in tiny doses, become medicine for us. The venom that stops a heart can also start one. The toxin that causes pain can cure it. Visualize the transformation of danger into healing, the way nature repurposes every tool, turning a weapon of death into a key for life. And what drives these changes? Often, it is not just survival of the fittest, but survival of the most beautiful. We drift to the concept of sexual selection. Evolution is not always a grim struggle for food. Sometimes, it is a beauty pageant. Visualize the peacock spreading his tail. It is a cascading fountain of iridescent eyes, shimmering in electric blue and emerald green. This tail is heavy. It makes him slow. It makes him easy to catch. By all rules of survival, it should not exist. But he wears it for an audience of one, the peahen. She chooses him not for his strength, but for his splendor. This choice drives the evolution of beauty in the natural world. It is the reason for the elk's giant antlers, the bird of paradise's dance, the lion's mane. It suggests that the universe appreciates aesthetics, that life is willing to burden itself with extravagance just to be noticed, just to be chosen. Feel the sheer exuberance of this display, the idea that life is not just about surviving, but about flourishing, about creating art with the body to celebrate existence. As we admire the peacock's display, we notice the specific colours, the shimmer, the iridescence. This brings us to the evolution of the eye itself, the window to the soul. We touched on this before, but let us drift deeper into the miracle of the lens. Visualize the timeline of vision. It began as a simple patch of sensitive cells that could tell day from night. Then, it curved into a cup to tell direction. Then, nature invented the lens, a clear, biological crystal that focuses light. But nature did not just invent the eye once, it invented it dozens of times in different ways. The insect has a compound eye, a mosaic of thousands of tiny screens. The scallop has mirrors in its eyes. The eagle has a telescope. Visualize the moment the world came into focus for the first time. The blur resolved into edges, patterns, and faces. Vision allowed life to anticipate the future, to see the predator before it strikes, to see the fruit before it is tasted. Feel the gratitude for your own eyes, those complex water-filled spheres that capture the photons of the universe and translate them into the movie playing in your mind right now. But there are things on this earth that are older than eyes, older than leaves, older than bones. We drift to the kingdom of the fungi, the great recyclers. Visualize a forest floor. Beneath the dead leaves and the rotting logs lies a vast white web of mycelium. It is the digestive system of the forest. Without fungi, the world would be buried in dead wood. These silent decomposers unlock the nutrients trapped in the dead, returning them to the soil to feed the living. They are the closers of the circle. Life, death, and then rebirth, mediated by the mushroom. Visualize the pale, ghostly shape of a mushroom pushing up through the damp earth after a rain. It is merely the fruit of the vast underground network. Some fungi are the largest organisms on Earth, stretching for miles underground, thousands of years old. They teach us that death is not an end, but a transformation, a breaking down of the old to build the new. Feel the peacefulness of this cycle, the assurance that nothing is ever wasted in the economy of nature. From the quiet rot of the forest floor, we look to the grand architecture of the planet itself and how it moves. We drift to the theory of plate tectonics. The ground beneath you feels solid, but that is an illusion of your short lifespan. If you could watch the Earth in fast forward, the ground would ripple like a liquid. Visualize the continents as giant rafts of rock floating on a sea of magma. They are restless wanderers. South America and Africa were once hugged together in a lover's embrace. You can still see where their coastlines fit like puzzle pieces. Over millions of years, they drifted apart. When these great rafts collide, they crumple upwards to form the Himalayas or the Alps. When they pull apart, they open wounds that become oceans. This slow dance of the continents dictates the climate, the currents, and the path of evolution. It separates populations, allowing them to evolve into new species. Feel the majestic slowness of this movement, the deep, groaning rhythm of the planet rearranging itself. It is a reminder that the map is never finished, that the Earth is a dynamic, living artist, constantly reshaping its own face. As the continents move, they carry with them the record of those who came before. We drift to the phenomenon of fossilization, the memory of the stone. It is a rare and lucky event. A creature dies and is buried quickly in the mud. The oxygen is shut out. Over thousands of years, water rich in minerals seeps through the bones. Atom by atom, the calcium is replaced by silica, by iron, by rock. The bone becomes stone. It is a form of immortality. Visualize a perfect ammonite shell, spiraled and golden, preserved for 100 million years, or the delicate impression of a fern leaf in a piece of coal. These are the letters sent to us from the deep past. Without them, we would have amnesia. We would not know about the dinosaurs, the giant sloths, the ancient seas. Feel the stillness of the fossil, the heavy silence of a life preserved in rock, waiting patiently for a hammer to crack it open and let the light in again. It is a gift of time, a connection between the living hand that holds it and the ancient heart that once beat. We hold the fossil in our hand, but we look up to the source of all energy, the star that makes it all possible. We drift to the evolution of photosynthesis, the eating of the sun. We mention the cyanobacteria, but now visualize the green leaf of a modern tree. It is a solar panel of exquisite design. Inside the cells are tiny green organelles called chloroplasts. They are like little factories. They take the chaotic, blinding energy of a photon, a particle of light from 93 million miles away, and use it to split water. Snap. The energy is captured. It becomes sugar. It becomes wood. It becomes the apple you eat. Every calorie of energy in your body, every movement of your muscle is essentially captured sunlight released after a long journey. You are solar powered. Visualize the forests of the world inhaling the carbon dioxide and exhaling the oxygen, a global breath that keeps us alive. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin and know that the plants are drinking that warmth to build the world. It is the fundamental alchemy of life, turning light into matter. Finally, we drift to the most mysterious boundary of all, the edge of the species. We explore the concept of speciation. How does one animal become two? Imagine a single tribe of salamanders living in a valley. A mountain range rises up, or a river cuts through, separating them. On the north side, it is wet and green. On the south side, it is dry and brown. The separated families can no longer meet. Over thousands of generations, the North tribe grows darker to hide in the mud. The South tribe grows lighter to blend with the sand. Their songs change, their rituals shift. When the river finally dries up and they meet again, they look at one another with no recognition. They can no longer mate. One has become two. This is the engine of diversity. It requires separation, isolation, and time. It explains why there are so many different kinds of beetles, so many birds of paradise. It is the result of life flowing into different containers and taking the shape of its home. Feel the branching of the tree of life, the endless forking paths that have led to the millions of unique species that share this moment with us. It is a celebration of difference, a testament to the creativity of isolation. And while isolation drives creatures apart, creating separate families on either side of the mountain, there is another force that pulls them together in an intimate ancient dance. We drift now to the concept of coevolution. Sometimes two lives become so intertwined that they can no longer exist without the other. They shape one another, like a key grinding a lock or a river carving a canyon. Visualize a deep green orchid hiding in the shadows of a Madagascar jungle. It has a nectar tube that is impossibly long, a foot-long throat of wax and petal. For centuries it seemed like a mistake of nature, for no bee or bird could reach the sweet treasure at the bottom. But nature does not make mistakes. It makes matches. Visualize the sphinx moth that evolved alongside this flower. It unfurls a proboscis, a tongue that is exactly the same length as the orchid's tube. Picture this midnight meeting, the pale flower glowing in the moonlight and the moth hovering silently, unrolling its delicate instrument to drink. As the moth drinks, the flower places its pollen gently on the moth's head, ensuring it will be carried to the next bloom. They have evolved in lockstep, the flower stretching and the moth stretching, a slow-motion race that has bound their destinies together. Feel the perfection of this fit, the comforting thought that for every strange and unique lock in the natural world, there is a key waiting to be found. It is a testament to the idea that we are shaped by those we love and those we need, carved by the presence of the other, until we fit together perfectly in the great puzzle of the ecosystem. This transformation through relationship is slow, but there is another kind of change that happens in the quiet of a cocoon, a total reinvention of the self. We drift to the miracle of metamorphosis. It is perhaps the most dreamlike phenomenon in all of biology. Visualize the caterpillar, a creature of the earth, heavy, consuming, bound to the leaf and the twig. It eats and grows, grounded by gravity. But then a call comes from within. It spins a silken chamber, a sanctuary of transformation. Inside the chrysalis, something terrifying and beautiful happens. The caterpillar does not just grow wings, it dissolves. It releases enzymes that melt its own body down into a rich biological soup. The structures of the old life, the legs, the mouth, the eyes, are completely deconstructed. Yet floating in this liquid potential are imaginal discs, tiny clusters of cells that hold the blueprint of the future. Visualize these cells waking up in the fluid, rebuilding the creature from the atomic level up. They take the raw material of the earthbound walker and weave it into the skybound flyer. When the casing finally cracks open, what emerges is wet, crumpled, and exhausted. But as it pumps fluid into its veins, the wings expand, stained glass panels of orange, black, or iridescent blue. The butterfly takes flight. Feel the hope in this process, the promise that we can completely let go of who we were to become who we are meant to be. It is the ultimate surrender to the flow of life, trusting that dissolution is not the end, but the necessary precursor to flight. From the solitary transformation of the butterfly, we move to the collective consciousness of the colony. We drift to the concept of the hive mind, or eusociality. Visualize a beehive hanging in an ancient oak tree, or an anthill rising like a city from the red earth. Here, the individual is secondary to the whole. Watch the bees moving over the honeycomb. It is a world of perfect geometry, a cathedral of wax built from thousands of identical hexagons. No single bee knows how to build the cathedral, yet together they engineer it with mathematical precision. They communicate through dance, the waggle dance, vibrating their bodies to tell their sisters exactly where the best flowers are relative to the angle of the sun. It is a language of movement and vibration. Feel the hum of the hive, a low-frequency drone that is the sound of thousands of beings thinking as one. There is no ego here. There is only the survival of the colony. One bee brings water, another fans its wings to cool the nursery, another guards the door. They are like the cells of a single, large animal. This level of cooperation allows them to achieve things that would be impossible for a solitary creature. It reminds us of the power of unity, of surrendering the self to a greater cause, and finding purpose in being a small, essential part of a magnificent whole. The hive is a warm, golden engine of life, fueled by the nectar of a million flowers, turning the chaos of the meadow into the order of honey. And just as the bees build with wax, other creatures have learned to spin unmatched materials from their own bodies. We drift to the evolution of silk. It is a liquid protein that hardens on contact with the air, a miraculous thread that is stronger than steel and more flexible than rubber. Visualize the spider sitting in the center of her web in the early morning mist. The web is a masterpiece of tension and engineering, a spiral galaxy strung between two branches. Dewdrops cling to the threads like diamond beads. The spider navigates this sticky lattice with ease, sensing the tiniest vibration of a trapped fly. She's an architect who carries her blueprints and her building materials inside her own body. But silk is not just for traps. Visualize the silkworm wrapping itself in a continuous thread a mile long to sleep. Or the diving bell spider, weaving an underwater tent to hold a bubble of air so it can breathe beneath the surface. This material is a testament to the creativity of evolution, turning the proteins of digestion into a tool for construction. Feel the delicate strength of a spiderweb brushing against your hand, a reminder that softness and strength are not opposites. Nature builds with tensile grace, creating structures that can bend with the wind without breaking, teaching us the value of flexibility and resilience in the face of the storm. While the spider builds a temporary home of silk, other creatures grow a permanent fortress of stone. We drift to the evolution of the shell. In the dangerous, soft-bodied world of the ancient oceans, to be soft was to be vulnerable. And so, the mollusks learn to pull minerals from the water, calcium and carbonate, and secrete them as armor. Visualize the chambered nautilus, a creature that has patrolled the deep reefs for hundreds of millions of years. It builds a spiral shell, a perfect logarithmic coil. As it grows larger, it builds a new, bigger chamber and seals off the old one behind it. It carries its history with it, a spiraling record of its own growth. The interior is lined with mother-of-pearl nacre, a substance that glows with the soft, iridescent colours of a sunrise, pinks, silvers, and creams. This shell is not just protection, it is a buoyancy tank. By regulating the gas in the empty chambers, the Nautilus can float effortlessly, rising and falling like a submarine. Feel the smoothness of a polished seashell in your hand, the cool, hard weight of it. It is a mobile sanctuary, a home that grows with you. It speaks to the need for boundaries, for a hard shield that protects the soft, tender life within. The shell is the physical manifestation of safety, a beautiful fortress built from the microscopic dust of the sea. Deep inside that shell and deep inside your own chest is a rhythm that has been beating since the dawn of the vertebrates. We drift to the evolution of the heart. In the beginning, in the simple worms, it was just a rippling muscle, a squeeze that pushed fluid along a tube. But as life grew bigger, the pump needed to grow stronger. Visualize the evolution of the chambers. The fish has a simple, two-chambered heart, a single loop sending blood to the gills and then the body. It is a slow, steady flow for a life suspended in water. Then, the amphibians and reptiles developed three chambers, a mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, good for a life of bursts and rests. But for the mammals and birds, the warm-blooded chasers, nature invented the double pump. Visualize the four-chambered heart, a masterpiece of plumbing. One side sends blood to the lungs to catch a breath. The other side blasts it out to the body to fuel the muscles. Lub-dub, lub-dub. It is the most persistent sound in the animal kingdom. Feel your own heart beating right now, a tireless worker that started before you were born and will not stop until the end. It is the engine of your warmth, the drum that keeps the time of your life. This evolutionary upgrade allowed us to run, to think, and to sustain high energy levels, turning the passive existence of the cold-blooded into the active, fiery existence of the warm-blooded. And what does this heart pump? We drift to the internal ocean we call blood. When life left the sea, it had to take the water with it. Your blood is chemically very similar to the ancient oceans from which we emerged. It is a salty, mineral-rich soup. Visualize the red blood cell. It is a tiny, biconcave disc, shaped like a donut without a hole. It is red because of iron, the same metal that forms the core of the planet and the meteors from space. This iron has a magical ability. It loves oxygen. It grabs the oxygen molecule in the lungs and rides the river of your veins to deliver it to a hungry muscle cell in your toe. But not all blood is red. Visualize the horseshoe crab in the shallow bay, whose blood is copper-based and bright blue. Or the ice fish in Antarctica, whose blood is clear as water because it acts as antifreeze. This river of life connects every part of you to every other part. It carries nutrients, hormones, and heat. It is a liquid information superhighway. Feel the warmth spreading through your limbs, a gentle reminder that you contain a private sea, a tide that rises and falls with every beat of your heart, keeping the shores of your body nourished and alive. As life spreads into different environments, it often faces the same physics, leading to the same solutions. We drift to the concept of convergent evolution. It is the idea that nature has a best design for certain problems, and different creatures will find it independently. Visualize the shape of a fast swimmer. The shark is a fish. The dolphin is a mammal. The ichthyosaur was a reptile. They're separated by millions of years and completely different ancestors, yet look at their shape. They all possess the sleek torpedo-like body, the dorsal fin for stability, and the driving tail. The water dictates the shape. To move fast through the heavy fluid, you must be streamlined. Visualize the eye of the octopus and the eye of the human. They look nearly identical, yet they evolved on completely different branches of the tree of life. It is as if the universe has a limited number of perfect solutions, and life drifts toward them like a magnet. This concept brings a sense of order to the chaos of biology. It suggests that there are rules, archetypes of form, the wing, the fin, the eye, that act as cosmic attractors. Feel the satisfaction of seeing these patterns repeat, a rhyme in the poetry of nature, proving that there is a deep, functional harmony underlying the diversity of life. While some creatures rush to evolve and change, others find a niche so perfect that they simply stop. We drift to the concept of the living fossil. These are the guardians of the past, creatures that look exactly today as they did hundreds of millions of years ago. Visualize the coelacanth, a large, heavy fish drifting in the deep underwater caves off the coast of Africa. It was thought to have died out with the dinosaurs, until a fisherman caught one in 1938. It has strange limb-like fins, a relic of the time when fish were thinking about walking on land. But the coelacanth decided to stay. Visualize the horseshoe crab, scuttling over the sand in the moonlight to lay its eggs. It has done this ritual for 450 million years. It watched the continents merge into Pangaea and break apart again. It watched the asteroids fall and the ice sheets rise, and through it all, it remained unchanged. There is a profound dignity in this refusal to modernize. These creatures found a design that worked, and they stuck with it. They are time travelers, living windows into the deep past. Feel a sense of respect for their resilience, for the if it isn't broken, don't fix it wisdom of nature. They remind us that sometimes the greatest success is simply to endure. Finally, we turn from the ancient endurance of the crab to the quiet, dormant potential of the future. We drift to the invention of the seed. Before seeds, plants reproduced with spores that needed water to travel. They were fragile and urgent. But the seed is a spaceship for a baby plant. Visualize an acorn lying on the floor of an autumn forest. It looks like a dead stone, but inside the hard, protective coat is an embryo, a tiny, sleeping oak tree, and packed around it is a lunchbox of starch and nutrients, enough to feed the baby until it can grow leaves and eat the sun. The genius of the seed is its ability to wait. It can sense the world outside. If it is too dry, too cold, or too dark, the seed sleeps. It can wait for a year, a decade, or even a millennium. Seeds found in ancient Egyptian tombs have been planted and sprouted to life. Visualize this suspended animation, the patience of the plant kingdom. It is a capsule of hope thrown into the future. When the warm rain finally comes, the shell cracks, the root dives down, and the shoot reaches up. Feel the coiled energy within that tiny package, the massive potential hidden in small things. It teaches us that rest is not death, and that waiting for the right moment is the key to a successful life. You too can plant seeds of intention in your mind, and trust that they will grow when the season is right. And just as the seed waits patiently in the dark earth, holding the promise of the future, the plant that bears it eventually seeks to send it out into the wider world. To do this, nature invented the most delicious form of bribery, the fruit. We drift now to the evolution of sweetness and the colourful lure of the orchard. For millions of years, the world was green and brown, bitter and fibrous. But the plants needed a courier, a way to move their heavy children away from the shadow of the parent tree. Visualize the moment a tree decides to invest its energy not in wood or leaf, but in sugar. It pumps sunlight and water into a fleshy casing around the seed. It paints this casing in bright, screaming colours, red, purple, orange, designed specifically to stand out against the green canopy. This is a visual shout to the animal kingdom. Imagine a prehistoric primate moving through the forest, stopping as the vibrant red of a berry catches its eye. Taste that first explosion of flavour. The sweetness is a biological signal, a chemical reward that says, "This is safe, this is energy." In exchange for this sugary gift, the animal eats the fruit and carries the seed in its gut, walking miles away before depositing it in a pile of natural fertilizer. It is a beautiful contract of mutual benefit. The tree feeds the animal, and the animal plants the forest. Feel the generosity of this system, the juice of a peach or a mango running down your chin, a tactile reminder of the co-evolutionary bond between the hunger of the body and the abundance of the earth. It is the invention of pleasure as a survival mechanism. As the scent of the ripening fruit drifts through the prehistoric air, it activates a sense far older than sight, a sense that reaches back to the very first bacteria. We drift to the evolution of olfaction, the sense of smell. Before eyes could see or ears could hear, life could smell. It is the ability to detect chemicals in the wind and water, the language of molecules. Visualize the anatomy of your own nose. High inside the nasal cavity, there are millions of tiny hair-like receptors waving in the airstream, like seagrass in a current. When you inhale the scent of rain, or pine needles, or roasting meat, these receptors lock onto the airborne particles. But unlike touch or sight, which have to go through complex processing centers in the brain, the signal from the nose goes directly to the limbic system, the ancient seat of emotion and memory. This is why a smell can instantly transport you back to your childhood, triggering a flood of feelings before you even know what you're smelling. It is the most intimate connection we have to the environment. Visualize our ancestors sniffing the wind, reading the invisible stories of the landscape, the predator upwind, the water source nearby, the pheromones of a mate. Feel the deep, instinctual power of the breath, knowing that with every inhalation, you're chemically analyzing the world, tapping into a sensory library that has guided life for billions of years. While the nose reads the wind, other creatures have evolved to feel the wind's very texture. We drift to the evolution of the vibrissae, the whisker. It is a tool of exquisite sensitivity, a way to touch the world without looking. Visualize a leopard moving through the pitch-black undergrowth, or a seal diving into the murky depths of the ocean. They are not blind because their faces are wreathed in a halo of sensitive sensors. Picture the long, stiff hairs radiating from the muzzle of a cat. These are not ordinary hairs. Their roots are set deep into a bed of nerves and blood capsules. They are so sensitive that they can detect the slightest shift in air current caused by a moving mouse, or the wake of a fish swimming nearby. They act as a radar system, creating a tactile force field around the animal's head. Imagine having this superpower, the ability to feel the shape of a room in the dark just by the pressure of the air against your face. It speaks to the need for precision in a chaotic world. The whisker allows the predator to strike with perfect accuracy, and the prey to navigate tight tunnels without getting stuck. Feel the gentle tickle of a pet's whiskers, realizing that you're touching a high-tech biological instrument, a legacy of the night hunters that needed to see with their skin. This sensitivity of touch is not limited to the face. In the primates, and in you, it migrated to the hands, creating a landscape of friction and identity. We drift to the evolution of fingerprints. Look at the tips of your own fingers. They are not smooth. They are etched with swirling valleys and ridges, loops and whirls, a topographical map that is unique to you. No two people who have ever lived, not even identical twins, have the same pattern. But nature did not create them for identification. It created them for grip. Visualize an ancestor leaping for a branch wet with rain. Smooth skin would slip, sending them falling to the forest floor. But these ridges act like the treads on a tire, channeling water away and increasing friction. They allow us to hold on. But there is a secondary magic to these ridges. As you run your finger over a piece of velvet or a rough stone, the ridges vibrate. These tiny vibrations are picked up by nerves, amplifying the sensation of texture. They turn the hand into a refined scanning device. Feel the texture of the sheets against your fingertips right now. That sensation is the result of millions of years of evolution designing a surface that can hold the world and understand it at the same time. It is a signature of our species, the mark we leave on everything we touch. As we hold the world in our hands, we look at the others who share it with us, and we communicate with a silent visual language. We drift to the evolution of the sclera, the white of the human eye. If you look at a chimpanzee or a wolf, their eyes are dark, hiding the direction of their gaze. It is a camouflage, preventing rivals from knowing what they are looking at. But look into a mirror, or the eyes of a loved one. The iris is a colourful island floating in a sea of bright white. This contrast is a uniquely human trait. It makes our gaze incredibly easy to follow. We evolved to show our cards, to broadcast our attention. Visualize a hunting party moving in silence. One hunter widens his eyes and looks to the left. Instantly, without a word, the others follow his gaze and see the deer. This cooperative eye is built for trust. It says, "I have nothing to hide. See what I see." It allows us to share a mental state, to align our focus on a shared goal. It is the anatomy of empathy. Feel the connection when you lock eyes with someone, the immediate transfer of intention and emotion. We sacrifice the safety of the dark camouflage for the power of shared connection, evolving an eye that is designed to connect rather than conceal. And sometimes, when that gaze meets ours, a sudden warmth floods our face. We drift to the evolution of blushing. It is the only involuntary physiological response that is unique to humans. No dog, no chimp, no dolphin blushes. It is a strange paradox. Why would evolution want us to advertise our embarrassment or our mistake? Visualize a gathering of the early tribe. A social rule has been broken, a mistake has been made. The air is tense, but then the offender's cheeks turn red. The blood rushes to the surface. This signal is impossible to fake. It is an honest signal. It tells the tribe, "I care about what you think. I know I transgressed. I value our bond." Studies show that people who blush are trusted more and forgiven more easily. It is a biological apology, a flag of surrender that diffuses aggression and repairs the social fabric. Feel the heat of a blush, not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of high social intelligence. It is the body betraying the ego to save the relationship. It reminds us that we are deeply social creatures, physically wired to maintain harmony and transparency with the people we love. This deep care for the social bond extends far beyond our reproductive years, leading to a unique structure in the human family. We drift to the grandmother hypothesis. In almost all other animals, the female reproduces until the end of her life. But human women live for decades after their childbearing years end. This is not an accident of aging. It is a strategy of survival. Visualize the ancient savannah. A mother is nursing a newborn, her hands full, her energy drained. Who helps the toddler find food? Who watches the fire? Enter the grandmother. By stopping her own reproduction, she frees up energy to invest in her grandchildren. She becomes the repository of wisdom, the extra pair of hands, the stabilizer of the family. Visualize the circle of the tribe, with the elders holding the young. This intergenerational support allowed humans to have babies faster and to keep them alive longer than any other ape. The wisdom of the grandmother, knowing where the water is during a drought, knowing which plants heal, saved the lineage time and time again. Feel the warmth of that nurturing presence, the protective shadow of the ancestors. It teaches us that our value is not just in what we produce, but in what we preserve and how we care for the future generations. Under the watchful eye of the elders, the young engage in the most serious business of childhood. We drift to the evolution of play. Watch a kitten pouncing on a ball of yarn, or children chasing each other in a game of tag. It looks like frivolous fun, but biologically it is expensive. It burns calories, it risks injury, it is noisy. So why did it evolve? Play as nature's flight simulator. Visualize a young wolf wrestling with its littermate. It is learning the physics of the bite, the balance of the body, the social rules of dominance and submission, all in a safe environment where the consequences are low. It is the brain building new neural pathways, testing the limits of the body. For humans, play is the birthplace of creativity. When we play, we are free to experiment, to imagine what if, to break the rules of reality. It keeps the brain plastic and flexible. Feel the joy of a game, the laughter that bubbles up. That joy is the evolutionary reward for learning. It is nature ensuring that we practice the skills of survival by making them delightful. It reminds us that we are designed to be joyful, to explore, and to not take the world so seriously all the time. After the exhaustion of play, the body collapses into stillness, but the brain lights up with a new kind of fire. We drift to the evolution of REM sleep and the dream. All mammals dream, and even some birds. But in humans, it is particularly intense. We spend hours every night paralyzed, while our eyes dart back and forth under our lids. Visualize the brain during this state. It is not resting. It is frantic with activity. It is sorting through the memories of the day, deciding what to keep and what to delete. It runs simulations, strange, illogical scenarios that test our emotional reactions. What if I fall? What if I am chased? Think of dreaming as a nightly therapy session or a software update. It consolidates our learning, turning raw experience into wisdom. It washes the brain with neurochemicals that soothe the stress centers. Feel the surreal, floating sensation of a dream, the way reality bends and shifts. It is the mind talking to itself, weaving the narrative of your self-identity. We evolved to dream because we need to process the complexity of our waking lives. It is the sacred cinema of the self, playing every night to an audience of one. Finally, we drift to the great conductor that orchestrates this cycle of waking and sleeping. We explore the circadian rhythm. Deep in the center of your brain, there is a tiny cluster of cells called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is your master clock. Visualize this clock synchronizing with the rotation of the Earth. It is sensitive to the blue light of the dawn and the red light of the dusk. When the sun hits your retina in the morning, the clock signals the release of cortisol, waking up the body, starting the metabolism, warming the muscles. When the sun sets and darkness falls, the clock signals the pineal gland to release melatonin, the hormone of darkness. Visualize this chemical tide rising and falling in your blood, a rhythmic wave that matches the spinning of the planet. We are not separate from the solar system, we're tuned to it. Every cell in your body has a tiny clock ticking inside it, coordinating with the master clock. Feel the peace of this alignment, knowing that your fatigue and your energy are part of a cosmic dance. The sun sets, and your body prepares for rest. The sun rises, and you are born again. It is the oldest rhythm in biology, the heartbeat of the earth echoing within your own veins. And just as the internal clock synchronizes your body with the rising and setting of the sun, your outer shell has evolved to engage with that star in a delicate protective dance. We drift now to the evolution of skin pigmentation, the story written in the colors of humanity. For millions of years, our ancestors lived under the dense canopy of the rainforest, shaded by leaves. But when they stepped out onto the open savanna, the sun became a double-edged sword. It provided warmth and vital energy, but its ultraviolet rays threatened to damage the delicate library of DNA within the skin cells. Visualize the skin as a living parasol. Deep in the epidermis, tiny specialized cells called melanocytes begin to work. They produce a pigment, melanin, a rich dark substance that acts as a natural sunscreen. Picture this pigment spreading out like a microscopic umbrella over the nucleus of each cell, shielding the precious genetic code from the radiation. This is not just a biological reaction, it is a map of our journey. As humans migrated north, away from the intense equator and into the twilight of the European winter, the umbrella folded. The skin lightened, allowing more of the weak sun to penetrate, to synthesize the vitamin D needed for strong bones. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin and realize that your specific tone is a perfect evolutionary calculation, a balance struck between the need for protection and the need for light. It is a beautiful gradient, a spectrum of sepia, bronze, olive, and alabaster that tells the story of where your ancestors walked and how the sun kissed them. It is a reminder that we are not separate races, but a single species adapting to the angle of the light, painted by the brush of the solar system. While the skin protects us from the silent radiation of the sky, it also serves as the boundary against the physical dangers of the world. We drift to the evolution of the guardian, the sensation of pain. It is easy to think of pain as an enemy, something to be feared, but in the grand narrative of survival, pain is the ultimate act of love your body performs for you. It is the teacher that says, do not touch, withdraw, heal. Visualize the intricate network of nociceptors, tiny nerve endings woven through your skin, your muscles, and your bones. They are the sentries standing guard at the gates. Imagine an ancestor reaching out to touch a thorn. Before the mind can even form the word sharp, the sentry sends a lightning-fast signal to the spine, and the hand pulls back. This reflex is faster than thought. It is the body bypassing the bureaucracy of the brain to save itself. Consider the sensory experience of a healed injury, the dull, throbbing ache that encourages you to rest a twisted ankle. This is the body's way of enforcing stillness, of creating a sanctuary of time for the tissues to knit back together. Without this guardian, we would walk through fire without knowing we were burning. Feel a sense of appreciation for this warning system, for the sharp, clear boundaries it sets, defining where you end and the dangerous world begins. It is the voice of self-preservation, whispering constantly that you are precious and must be kept whole. But sometimes the threat is not a thorn or a burn, but a microscopic invader that slips past the skin. When this happens, the body transforms into a furnace. We drift to the evolutionary brilliance of the fever. We often treat a fever as a sickness, but it is actually the cure. It is a strategic siege. Visualize the thermostat in your brain, the hypothalamus, sensing the presence of a virus. It makes a command decision. Raise the heat. The body responds. The blood vessels constrict to hold on to warmth, which is why you feel the chills, and the metabolic fire is stoked. The temperature rises. This inner heat creates an environment where the invaders cannot reproduce, cooking them out, while simultaneously speeding up the movement of your own immune cells. Think of it as a cleansing fire, a blacksmith's forge where health is hammered out in the heat. Evolution learned millions of years ago that a hot body is a hostile place for enemies. Feel the heavy, drowsy comfort that comes with a fever, the body forcing you to lie down, to sleep, to direct every ounce of energy toward the internal battle. It is a primal, systemic response, a testament to the body's willingness to endure temporary discomfort to ensure long-term survival. It is the heat of life fighting for itself. Before the battle ever reaches the stage of fever, nature has placed a series of wet, sticky traps to catch the invaders at the door. We drift to the evolution of mucus and saliva. It sounds humble, perhaps even unpleasant to the modern mind, but this hydrogel is the river of life that protects our most vulnerable openings. Visualize the lining of your nose and throat. It is not dry parchment. It is a lush, aquatic environment. Specialized cells constantly weave a tapestry of clear, sticky fluid. This mucus is a filter, a net that catches dust, pollen, and bacteria before they can descend into the sacred space of the lungs. It is a moving staircase, constantly flowing, sweeping the debris away to be dissolved in the stomach. And in the mouth, visualize the crystal clear spring of saliva. It is not just water. It is a chemical cocktail teeming with enzymes and antibodies. It washes the teeth, heals small cuts, and prepares our food for the journey ahead. Without this moisture, We could not speak, we could not taste, and we could not swallow. Feel the hydration in your mouth right now, a sign that the systems are working. It is the body's first line of defense, a gentle, fluid shield that keeps the interior world clean and flowing. It reminds us that softness and fluidity can be powerful barriers against the hard edges of the world. Bathed in this fluid, sitting on the throne of the tongue, are the scouts of the digestive system. We drift to the evolution of taste. For an animal moving through a world filled with both nourishment and poison, the ability to chemically analyze matter before swallowing is a matter of life and death. Visualize the surface of the tongue, a landscape of bumps and valleys. Hidden within are the taste buds, sensitive flowers that open to receive the molecules of food. Evolution has coded a color wheel of sensations, each with a survival meaning. Sweetness is the signal for energy, the taste of ripe fruit and safety. It brings instant pleasure, a reward for finding fuel. Salt is the taste of the ocean from which we came, essential for our nerves and muscles. Umami is the savory taste of protein, the building blocks of the body. But then there is bitter. Visualize the sharp, recoiling sensation of biting into a toxic leaf. Bitter is the warning bell. It says, spit this out. It is the ancient memory of poison. Evolution made safety taste good and danger taste bad. Feel the lingering memory of a favourite meal, the way the flavours danced across the palate. This is not just culinary enjoyment, it is an ancient guidance system, a sensory compass pointing us toward what builds us up and steering us away from what tears us down. Once the food passes the test of the tongue and travels down into the dark, churning cavern of the gut, it encounters the ghosts of our evolutionary past. We drift to the concept of vestigial organs, the dusty attic of the human body. Evolution is not a perfect engineer who builds from scratch. It is a tinkerer who modifies what is already there. Sometimes it leaves things behind. Visualize the appendix, a small worm-like pouch attached to the large intestine. For years, surgeons removed it, thinking it useless. But deep in the history of our lineage, when our ancestors ate mostly rough leaves and bark, this organ was likely a large fermentation tank, a second stomach for digesting cellulose. As we switched to fruit and cooked meat, the tank shrank, its primary purpose lost to time. Yet, even now, it acts as a safe house for good bacteria, a reboot drive for the gut. Move your mind down to the base of your spine, the coccyx, the tailbone. It is a fused cluster of vertebrae hidden beneath the skin. It is the shadow of a tail. Visualize your distant ancestors balancing in the high canopy, using that tail as a fifth limb. We descended from the trees and learned to walk upright, and the tail vanished, leaving only this small, bony anchor. Feel the presence of these silent remnants, the echoes of the bodies we used to have. They connect us to the herbivores and the tree dwellers, physical proof that we are a work in progress, carrying the blueprints of our history inside us. This tinkering nature of evolution is nowhere more evident or more beautifully strange than in the path of a single nerve. We drift to the recurrent laryngeal nerve. This nerve connects the brain to the voice box, the larynx. In a direct design, it would be a short jump of a few inches from the brainstem to the throat. But evolution works in steps, not leaps. Visualize the anatomy of a fish, our very distant ancestor. In the fish, the nerve took a direct path past the heart vessels to the gills, but as the neck elongated over millions of years and the heart descended into the chest, the nerve got caught. It was looped around the aorta, the great artery of the heart. Now, visualize a giraffe. To send a signal to its voice box, the nerve must travel all the way down that long, elegant neck, loop around the heart in the chest, and then travel all the way back up to the throat. It is a detour of 15 feet to cross a gap of a few inches. It is a beautiful imperfection. It shows us that evolution works with what it has, stretching and adapting the old patterns rather than breaking them. Feel the vibration of your own voice humming in your throat, a sound controlled by a nerve that takes a scenic journey through your chest, hugging your heart before allowing you to speak. It is a connection between your words and your heart that is quite literally built into your wiring. The nerve connects to the brain, and here we find the greatest archaeological site of all. We drift to the concept of the triune brain. Your brain is not a single uniform blob. It is a city built upon a city, layer by layer, eon by eon. Visualize the deepest center, the brainstem or the reptilian brain. This is the oldest part, the basement foundation. It handles the basics: breathing, heartbeat, temperature. It never sleeps. It is the cold, steady rhythm of the lizard, concerned only with survival. Above it sits the limbic system, the mammalian brain. This is the layer of emotion, memory, and connection. It is the part that cares for the young, that feels fear and love, the warm, fuzzy center of the wolf or the bear. And finally, wrapped around the outside like a wrinkled grey blanket, is the neocortex. This is the human brain. It is the seat of logic, language, art, and future planning. It is the newest addition, the penthouse view. When you feel an emotion, it comes from the center. When you rationalize it, it comes from the surface. Feel the interplay of these three layers, the ancient instincts bubbling up and being smoothed by the logic of the surface. It explains why we are such complex creatures, torn between instinct and reason. We are a lizard, a wolf, and a human, all sharing the same skull, trying to steer the ship together. From this complex layering of the brain arises a behavior that is purely social and deeply healing. We drift to the evolution of laughter. We think of laughter as a reaction to a joke, but biologically, it is a signal of safety. It evolved from the play panting of great apes, the heavy rhythmic breathing they make when wrestling to say, "This is just a game. I am not attacking you." Visualize the physical act of laughter. The chest contracts rhythmically, squeezing air out. The guard drops. It is physically impossible to laugh and to maintain a state of fight or flight. Laughter releases a cascade of endorphins, the brain's natural painkillers. It bonds the group together. When we laugh with others, we are tuning our brains to the same frequency. Imagine the sound of deep belly laughter bubbling up, contagious and warm. It breaks the tension in a room like a storm clearing the humidity. It is an evolutionary release valve, a way to discharge nervous energy and reaffirm the bonds of the tribe. Feel the lightness that follows a good laugh, the relaxation of the muscles, the sense that the world is for a moment a safe and joyful place. It is the sound of the mammalian brain rejoicing in connection. But the release of emotion has a liquid form as well. We drift to the mystery of emotional tears. Humans are the only animals on Earth that shed tears due to feelings. Other animals produce moisture to clean the eye, but only we weep from sorrow or joy. Visualize the chemistry of a tear. A tear caused by dust is just water, but a tear caused by sadness contains stress hormones and natural painkillers like leucine and kephalin. When you cry, you're literally flushing stress out of your body. It is a chemical exorcism. But more than that, visualize the visual signal. When tears fill the eyes, your vision blurs. You're effectively blinding yourself. You're defenseless. This is a powerful signal to the tribe. It says, "I am vulnerable. I need help. I am not a threat." It triggers an immediate instinct in others to offer comfort. Feel the warmth of a tear sliding down a cheek, a river of release. It is the ultimate display of trust, lowering the shields to allow others in. It reminds us that our vulnerability is not a defect, but a glue that holds the human family together, washing away the walls between us. And as the tears clear and the eyes focus again, we look up from our own bodies to the vast celestial bodies that have guided us. We drift to the moon and the evolution of the menstrual cycle and tidal rhythms. Life began in the sea, and the sea is ruled by the moon. It is no coincidence that the reproductive cycle of the human female averages 28 days, the exact length of the lunar cycle. Visualize the gravitational pull of the moon dragging the oceans across the surface of the earth, the tides rising and falling in a breathless rhythm. Ancient life, floating in those tidal pools, learned to synchronize its reproduction with the high tides to ensure the safety of its eggs. We have carried this tidal rhythm out of the ocean and onto the land. It lives on in the cycles of fertility, a clockwork made of blood and hormones that mimics the waxing and waning of the pale orb in the night sky. Feel the connection between the fluids of your body and the tides of the ocean. We are made of water, and like the sea, we are pulled by the heavens. It creates a sense of belonging, realizing that the rhythms of birth and life are not random, but attuned to the orbital mechanics of the solar system. We are celestial beings, our biology keeping time with the silent silver rotation of the moon. From the pull of the moon, we return to the intimate connection between mother and child, specifically the biochemistry of love. We drift to the evolution of oxytocin, the cuddle hormone. This molecule is the chemical signature of devotion. It likely evolved to help mothers lay eggs or produce milk, but evolution repurposed it to forge the strongest bond in nature. Visualize a mother gazing at her newborn, or lovers holding hands. The brain releases this warm golden chemical. It lowers the heart rate. It inhibits the fear centers. It creates a feeling of absolute melting trust. This is the glue of society. It is the reason we stay together, the reason we care for the sick, the reason we sacrifice for others. Imagine this chemical flowing through your veins like liquid sunlight, softening the edges of your ego, dissolving the barrier between me and you. It turns a collection of selfish individuals into a family, a tribe, a civilization. It is the biological basis of love, proving that compassion is not just a moral choice, but a physical imperative wired into our very survival. While oxytocin binds us to those close to us, our minds are capable of reaching out to things that do not even exist. We drift to the evolution of storytelling and myth. No other animal tells stories. They communicate facts, snake, food, danger. But humans communicate fictions. Visualize the tribe sitting around the fire again. An elder speaks not of the hunt today, but of the hunt tomorrow, or the hunt of the great spirit in the sky. The human brain evolved the unique ability to decouple from the present moment. We can run simulations. We can imagine scenarios that have never happened. This is the birth of the collective fiction. Money, laws, nations, gods, none of these exist in the physical world like a rock or a tree. They exist only because we all agree to believe the same story, feel the power of the narrative, the invisible threads of belief that allow millions of strangers to cooperate. It is the ultimate software of the human mind, allowing us to build cathedrals out of words and empires out of ideas. It reminds us that reality is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves, and that by changing the story, we can change the world. From the stories of the spirits, we turn to the hard, unyielding reality of the ice. We drift to the concept of epigenetics, the ghost in your genes. We used to think that DNA was a fixed blueprint, unchangeable, but we now know that the environment can leave a mark on your genes that is passed down to your children and grandchildren. Visualize a village during a harsh winter famine. The stress of hunger causes a chemical marker, a tiny switch, to attach to the DNA of the villagers. It says, be thrifty, store fat, survival is hard. Years later, the famine ends. The children are born in a time of plenty, but they carry the switch. Their bodies are wired to hoard calories, a biological memory of a winter they never experienced. This is the inheritance of experience. It means that the trauma and the triumphs of your ancestors are whispering in your cells. Feel the weight of this legacy, but also the hope, for it means that your choices today, what you eat, how you handle stress, how much you love, can leave a positive mark on the generations to come. You are the author of a biological letter that will be read by the future. And finally, we look at the strange, beautiful lengthening of the human timeline. We drift to the evolution of childhood. A horse can run hours after being born. A chimp is independent in a few years, but a human is helpless for a decade and dependent for 2. We remain children longer than any other creature. Visualize the brain of a child. It is a sponge, growing at an explosive rate, consuming half of the body's energy. To build a brain complex enough to speak, to build tools, and to navigate society, nature had to delay adulthood. We traded immediate strength for future intelligence. This neoteny, the retention of youthful traits, means we stay curious, playful, and flexible far into adulthood. We are the Peter Pans of the animal kingdom. Feel the softness of this extended youth, the luxury of having years to learn, to play, and to explore before the weight of the world settles on your shoulders. It is a time of open-hearted wonder, a prolonged sunrise that allows the human mind to become the most complex object in the known universe. And finally, as we stand at the summit of this mountain of time, looking back over the vast winding path that stretches for 4 billion years, we arrive at the most profound truth of all. The final secret is not about a bone, or a gene, or a star. It is about the unbroken nature of the light you carry within you. We drift to the concept of the immortal germline. Consider this. For you to exist right now, lying in this bed, breathing this air, a miracle of continuity had to occur. Picture a golden thread stretching backward into the dark. Your mother held it, and her mother before her, and her mother before her. Back through the ice ages, back through the heat of the savannah, back to the small furry mammals hiding in the burrows, back to the reptiles, the amphibians, the fish, and finally to that single, shimmering cell in the primordial sea. Visualize this chain of life, billions of links long. Here is the staggering truth. Not one single link ever broke. In 4 billion years, amidst volcanoes, asteroid impacts, plagues, and predators, not one of your direct ancestors failed to survive long enough to pass the torch of life to the next. You are the result of an uninterrupted winning streak that has lasted since the dawn of the planet. The fire of life that burns in your chest right now is the exact same fire that was ignited in the deep ocean vents. It has never gone out. It has simply changed shape, passed from body to body, from vessel to vessel, refining itself, learning, growing, until it became you. Feel the immense weight and privilege of this realization. You're not an isolated being. You're the current edge of a wave that began at the beginning of time. You're the universe looking back at itself. All the stardust, all the struggle, all the invention of eyes and hearts and hands. It was all leading to this moment, to the possibility of a mind that can close its eyes and wonder. You are the crescendo of a symphony that the earth has been writing for eons. The separation between you and the ancient past is an illusion. You are the ancient past living in the eternal present. And now, the journey is complete. The golden thread gently falls from your hands, coiling softly on the floor of your dreams. The parade of creatures, the swimming whales, the soaring birds, the silent forests, and the wandering ancestors, slowly begins to fade into the mist. They return to the library of time, leaving you alone, safe, and deeply peaceful in the sanctuary of the now. The river of history widens, the current slows, and the water becomes still as glass. You have drifted out of the turbulent streams of evolution and into the vast, calm ocean of sleep. There is nothing more to learn tonight. There is nothing more to understand. The story has been told and the book is gently closing. Feel the heavy, warm blanket of the night wrapping tighter around you. The gravity of the earth, the same gravity that pulled the dust into a planet, now pulls you down into the mattress. You are heavy. You are supported. You are held by the world that made you. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of the tides, matching the slow rotation of the galaxy. Inhale and let the stardust fill your lungs. Exhale and let the history release its hold. You're simply a being of light and matter, resting in the quiet dark. The images blur, The colours soften to grey and velvet black. The sound of my voice becomes a distant hum, a part of the wind, a part of the silence. You're drifting deeper and deeper, returning to the source. The ancient peace that existed before the first cell, before the first thought, is waiting for you there. Let go of the timeline, let go of the shapes, let go of the name you call yourself. Just be the stillness. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.